Hey, and we're there. Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to Friday. How's everybody doing? The longest running lifting live podcast thing in the history of the world. That's what I'm claiming. I don't know anybody else that does this every Friday. So if you do, let me know, because I don't. So we will claim on Massive Iron Live we're the longest running live Q&A podcast thing in the history of lifting, since people began lifting up rocks and fields to challenge themselves. All right, how's everybody doing? Appreciate you joining me. It is Friday, June 2nd, and just a few things before I'm going to actually do a live reaction to Ryan Terry's video with Chris Williamson. That's going to be about 10 minutes. We're going to kick it off today with that, and I want you guys' feedback. Chris Williamson is interviewing Ryan Terry, and basically the question is, what 10 exercises, if you only got to pick 10, would be your 10 exercises? So I got to work with Ryan Terry years back. I'm just getting comfortable in my chair. I got to work with Ryan years back. He was in my office, got to do an interview. I think there's a couple videos on this channel with him. Got to work with him a little bit, spent some time with him. Really good guy, decent guy, humble guy, one of the best guys in the industry for my time with him. So we're gonna do that. Oh, excuse me. Before we move forward, if you are late to the party and you want to send me questions, you can head over to Instagram at Ben the Barman, slide into my DM, and you can post questions at any time during the week. I answer every question DM'd to me on Instagram. That's what I'm here for. I do coaching full time, and if you want coaching, there's a coaching tab at superlivingtoday.com. I'd love to work with you, please, but if not, don't think I'm going to be one of these dickheads that doesn't answer your question. I answer every question sent to me. I wish I could answer every question on YouTube, but mostly I can answer every question on Instagram. So if your question does not go through, make sure you either shorten it. Sometimes YouTube can be funny, or rephrase it. Sometimes YouTube can filter things because of words. If your question doesn't go through, it's not me throttling you. It's just platform can be a little bit wonky. Now, before we get into things, just a few notes. All right. Follow me on Instagram at Ben the Barman, please. I'd appreciate it. You can also head over to my website, superlivingtoday.com. We got coaching. We have workouts, a workout tab. We have supplements. I have creatine away. I'm not trying to be a supplement company, but if you want to put $5 in my pocket and get quality products, those are available. We also have teammassiveiron.com, teammassiveiron.com. It is one of the largest, if not the largest. It is a top quality community. Think of Facebook group, but far more than that. I got my articles, my workouts. We have daily check-ins, daily topics. We have live chat, live stream. It's kind of like Discord and Facebook groups and in an article database all into one. And it's very inexpensive. teammassiveiron.com. So that's really it for the spiel. Let me know what you guys are doing this weekend. If you have any off-topic questions, you can post them as well. And let me get this thing off here. All right. So I saw this video the other day by Ryan Terry. And before I do it, I want you guys to give me your feedback. I haven't watched the video, and let me see if I can present it here. Share screen. Here we go. I have not watched this video. So, it's not like I pre-screen things. Where's my head? It's not like I pre-screen things and, I'm coming with some gimmick or some shtick or anything. I really have no idea. This is Chris Williamson and Ryan Terry. Again, I worked with Ryan Terry a little bit back in the day. And basically, Chris, I'm gonna react to the whole entire video, and I want you guys to do that live as well in the chat. Ryan's gonna present his 10 exercises. If you only got to pick 10 for muscle building, and let me know what you think. I'm just gonna react live. So let's get into that. We're gonna do this for 10 minutes, and I'm gonna hop into the questiones. So let's see here. Let me see if I can shrink this down. And let me see if I can shrink it. Can I shrink the tab down a little bit? There we go. Let's try that. The only 10 exercises men need to build muscle. Let's get into it.
20 years focusing on training, especially for hypertrophy.
Yeah.
You are someone that has won pretty much every single title on the planet. You have 10 exercises that you can do for the rest of your life in order to maintain as good of a physique as you can.
So 10 exercises, if you only got to pick 10 for the rest of your life to maintain your physique, what would they be? That's the premise.
What are they and why?
10, that's very specific.
10. I just figured that would be enough for you to get each different muscle group.
Right, okay.
So what are the longest levers that you can pull when it comes to maintaining size or increasing size for muscle?
A lot of obviously compound lifts. So you're looking at your deadlifts, your bench press, and your squats. They're always good. Again, these are things that I've had to adapt over the years because of injuries and things, training silly when I was younger.
All right. So they were talking about levers and stuff like that. So I'm not sure yet if these are his first 3 lifts, deadlift, bench, or squat, or if he's just talking about these as quality. What did I miss?
Okay, there's 3.
There's 3 there.
So they're going to go with those 3: deadlift, squat, and bench. Okay, they're going to go with the class. Now we're in power building territory. Where you kind of like, you kind of like the muscle, you kind of like the strength. All right, Ryan, I like where you're going.
Hanging leg raise.
Whoa, hanging leg raise. I don't know. You only got 10 exercises in the mix, guys. I'm probably not going to put an ab exercise in the mix.
The core. It's one of the hardest midsection. If you do it properly, I think it's one of the hardest midsection exercises, but it's phenomenal for your transverse abdominals, your upper and lower abdominals, everything. It's a great. I feel like that was something that helped me build my midsection.
You've got one
heavily.
of the.
I can't argue with him, but if I'm going to only get 10 exercises, I'm kind of looking at this like, what am I going to get the most bang for my buck? And by putting an ab exercise in, you're really forcing out something that could really have a lot of impact on the rest of your body. So not what I would go for.
Like acclaimed best midsections in all of fitness. What are the cues that people get wrong when they're doing hanging leg raises?
So they create momentum, they swing, which I think that has a bit to do with CrossFit with this kipping and malarkey and momentum stuff that came into play a fair few years ago. But I think
so. This is only a 10-minute video, so hang tough with the spieling.
Swinging, I think using the hip flexors instead of the midsection.
How do you know if you're doing that?
You'll feel it. You'll feel it down your quads.
What's the cue? Someone's doing someone's listening to this hanging from a bar right now. What is the cue for them to go from I'm hanging straight to I'm doing a leg raise that makes it work appropriately?
So is it tucking the hips in and making sure you're contracting your upper and lower abdominals before anything else? So it's always keeping them fully contracted. Mind to muscle connection is a huge thing. I believe in heavyweight and trying to ego lift. And since I've done that,
does the same.
Yeah, and the thing is, the last few years I've done that so much more now. As I've got older and more mature, I'm not just trying to lift heavyweight and trying to ego lift. And since I've done that, the muscle maturity and how my body's developed is just exponential. I just wish I'd done it.
I think what Ryan's talking about is something I teach my clients a lot, is not just moving weight through space, but also controlling the weight. We're chasing strength, but we're also controlling the weight.
5-6 years ago. So I think that's very important, mind to muscle connection.
With hanging leg raises, are you going to an L? Are you going up to touch the bar?
So either. So I used to do all the way to the top, but I alternate now. So I just do a bit of both. I think there's a place for both of them, but I think that when you go past a certain point, you are recruiting other muscle groups. So if you want to just isolate your midsection, just go to 90 degrees.
How do you do progressive overload on that? Or do you?
You could add weights to your.
Do you?
I don't personally know, because I was obsessed with my midsection growing up. As you can see, Rob Richards was the guy who got me obsessed with it. So I wanted to be on the front covers like Rob was. I used to see all the magazines, and I try to treat my midsection like any other muscle part. A lot of people think with the midsection, you should I don't know, let them recover 2, 3, 4 days before we hit them again. And that's how I look at. I start to develop really chunky abs, blocky abs.
All right, I'm trying to move on past the 7-minute ab spiel here.
So it took a lot of years to start having to hyperextend for every crunch I did.
You've got squat, bench, deadlift,
Yeah, okay.
hanging leg raises, 6 more slots to keep your body.
So I'd go with some isolation work. So we'll probably go with like an incline dumbbell chest, just because
I wouldn't really call that an isolation exercise, but incline dumbbell bench.
you
Yeah,
can do a lot of
can't go
different
wrong with
variations on that, but I think it's great for development.
Shoulders aren't getting much work at the moment.
All right, shoulder press. We'll go with a dumbbell shoulder press because it's great for isolation, unilateral.
All right, you just went with a dumbbell overhead press. About half of the muscle building influencers just crap their pants because a lot of guys don't like the dumbbell overhead press. They think they focus too much on the front delts. Of course they do, just like bench does. But the other day I was in the gym working my shoulders, just doing Arnold presses and barbell overhead presses, and the pumps I get in my side delts are ridiculous. So let's see.
And that's quite important. Obviously, leg work. Left. So we need to do some hamstring work. So we'd do. I would say stiff leg deadlift, but no. I think if we're going to try and create some growth, I think we're going to go for like a lying hamstring curl heavy.
You prefer a lying to a seated?
I'm not sure I would put the leg curl in the top 10. I mean, we don't have any back exercises. Legs, we have squats. We need room for another leg exercise.
I do, yes. Yeah, I do. But I don't know if that's down to the fact that I just get better contraction off that. I think it's personal preference in my eyes. That I've always said that with any type of exercises, if you feel an exercise more than another, stick with it, go with it, do the extra sets and reps on that particular exercise, because that's where you're going to get the most out of it. If you do,
well, that's fair to a point. I mean, having a good connection with equal exercises is a good thing, but you also need room in the mix on these exercises for progressive overload. So if you had 2 exercises that you could really feel both with, but one of them didn't have a lot of room for progression and the other one did, which one is the obvious choice?
Doing an exercise because someone else has told you to do it and you're not getting that mindfulness connection, or you're not feeling it. There's no point. And that's what I love about bodybuilding as well. Nutrition and training, you adapt it to you. It's an individual sport. You can have people around you supporting you, but your metabolism and the way you train, the way you eat, it all falls on you. So learn the body yourself and adapt as you go.
Okay, 3 left. What have we got?
I've lost where we are now.
Squat, bench, deadlift, hanging leg raise, incline chest press with dumbbells, shoulder press,
seated calf raise.
Seated calf raise. Oh, so you want to get the soleus moving?
Yeah, we'll get them in.
Okay.
He's got like seated calf raise, hanging leg raise, leg curls. Not my top 10. I'm not going to lie. We're still missing some back work here.
Okay, we'll cover them. And then
2 left.
We need overhead tricep extension, rope.
Pivoted from the bottom of a pulley.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. What are the cues that people get wrong there? Because this is something
I don't really want to hear.
With it, but I like to close grip pull-ups.
AG1 is
close grip pull-ups. We'll kill this so we are no longer listening to the ad, but he said close grip pull-ups. That's like this or like this. I'm not really sure. We're going to get into it, but some interesting exercises. Definitely not my top 10. So I'd like to know what you guys think. What exercises would you bump out of his and would you put in your top 10? All right, let's get into questions, guys. And just a reminder, if you post a question before a live starts, you get a chance to win a free t-shirt, hoodie, gym bag, whey, or creatine. Your choice, shipped anywhere in the world. So pay attention. If I pick you, You can email me, benthebarman@gmail.com, or Instagram, benthebarman, at benthebarman. All right. First, I'm a dad. What's your superpower? Thanks for joining in. Morning Massive Mammals. Assassin was one of the members of the month on Team Massive Iron. So congrats to Assassin. Kayla is always active on Team Massive, and I appreciate her. I appreciate everybody over at Team Massive, like Eric and Paul and Dungeons and Dumbbells, which are about to pop up. And is it okay to switch to a new program if eating at maintenance and trying to heal? Or does it absolutely need to wait until healed and ready to bulk? Well, I don't know about switching to a new program. A small injury, I don't know what we're talking about. Some small injuries can just take a few days. Some can take 4 weeks. If you kind of want to do a downgrade of your program, that's fine. If you have a program you want to use when you're going to be bulking, and you want to kind of use the injury healing time to kind of ease into that program, get a feel for that program, that's fine. Just don't do anything radical or attack progressive overload. And congrats, Assassin, on Member of the Month. Everybody else needs to join teammassiveiron.com. You do. You get up to 4 form checks a week. You get to ask me anything at any time. We have a daily topic. We have monthly challenges. You have access to articles and PDFs, all kinds of good stuff. So please consider it. It's not super expensive. It's less than your subscription to, far less than your subscription to Netflix or, any of the other crappy things you're subscribed to that you don't really watch anyway. So dump one of them, right? Eric, happy Friday. Ever think of recreating your power muscle block as a power muscle bulldozer routine? Good idea. I never thought of that specifically, but that is a possibility. Eric, you gave me a really good idea. And if you can DM it on Team Massive Iron so I don't forget, I would appreciate that. That's a good idea. Big Paul. Now, I'm going to let you guys know something, a little bit of over on Boost Camp. I am kind of talking with these guys about putting up a couple free programs. One of them I think would be upper posterior, and another one I was thinking of the power muscle burn variation, an update, something exclusive to Boost Camp. So it would be kind of fun to do that on Boost Camp. What do you guys think? A power muscle bulldozer. That would be kind of fun. Big Paul, how much time do you recommend for a peaking phase? Been doing an 8-month hypertrophy block. A peak, when you peak, you're kind of peaking, heading towards testing your 1 rep max. I think if you're very serious about it, you could do as little as a 4-week peak, which is basically a quick taper. If you're not what I would consider late advanced or late intermediate strength, like you're kind of early intermediate or intermediate, you could just do a simple 4-week peak. I have a little PDF over on superlivingtoday.com, my website. And over there, if you search peak, you can find it. It kind of shows you 4, 6, and 8-week peaks. If you're more intermediate or late intermediate, probably a 6-week peak would be a good idea. And really advanced, if you really kind of want to do it full steam like a power lifter, probably an 8-week peak. But for most people, there's really no need to go over a 6-week. Paul, would you consider sissy squats more of a finisher? And are they good to replace leg extensions? I would think they were equal with leg extensions as far as like exercise class. And this is going to be, something we could debate. but everybody's going to feel it a little bit different. I got my fan. I just turned my fan on. And if you guys hear any noise from the fan, please let me know. But Paul, what I would suggest in case, oops, wait, we got a guest in the studio. You're in the studio.
I'm in the studio.
You're in the studio.
So Snoopy.
We got some wieners in the studio too.
Big old Bubsy.
Oh, Bubba, what you? This is the OG wiener, Bubba
He's on the
McSausages.
hunt.
Bubba McSausages. What are you doing? You're all fired up, Bubba.
Yes.
Bubba. What are you doing?
I got a hairdresser.
Oh, she's going to hairdresser. You want to give us some words of wisdom before you go?
Buy a sausage dog.
No, how about buy something from me?
Get a sausage dog. They're the best doggies you could ever
Yeah,
have.
this is Snoop Dogg.
Snoopy.
This is Snoopy.
He's a big boy.
He's a tanker.
He's a big one.
Where's Buddy Boy? Where's my
He's
little
a big
Chi-Chi?
warrior
Chi-Chi.
boy.
This Chi-Chi. This is my guy, Chi-Chi. He follows me everywhere. He's my boy. Anyway,
I have to go.
all right, have fun.
I will.
All right, whoa, don't jump down, dude. Paul, what I would suggest, I mean, when it comes to like trying out new exercises, I like to do like AB, like week 1 sissy squats, week 2 leg extensions. If you really don't like leg extensions and you just want to give it a run, go right ahead. There's no downside with running sissy squats. If you don't like them, just abandon them in a couple weeks. Dungeons and Dumbbells. Good morning. Please check out his YouTube. He's got some good stuff on there. And I thought there was a way to invite people on. Mike M. When doing drag curls, is it normal to feel the exercise in the traps or shoulders? I get this question a lot about a variety of different exercises. Like someone asked, I'm doing cable tricep extensions, and I feel them in my chest. I feel them in my abs, my obliques. I'm doing drag curls. I feel them in my traps or shoulders. Anything like this is normal, because even if we consider an exercise isolation, the exercise really never is isolation. There's all kinds of stabilizers and supporting muscles working. And this is a beautiful thing about hypertrophy. My philosophy is more of a shotgun approach, right? You pick your 20 or 30 lifts and you just attack them hard. We don't focus on a muscle like boom, hitting the shoulders. We focus on that area, right? Like a shotgun blast. We're not like a sniper trying to go in. In the massive iron world, we're not like a sniper, like overly obsessed all the time with just hitting the side delts on overhead presses. We're more like a shotgun blast. We're going to hit that area. And when doing any of these lifts, if you're executing them properly, right, you got good control, and you're not rushing, you're not just, doing the machine gun approach on your reps. You might get some different feel. You might get your traps involved. I was doing overhead presses this week. My traps were really going to town. My rear delts get worked really hard on overhead presses. This isn't something you hear talked about, but I'm a veteran of 38 years, and my rear delts are getting destroyed, and my traps are getting destroyed from overhead presses. That's okay. One of the common things that we tend to fear is that if we say we're doing a drag curls and we feel them in our traps or shoulders, we fear that it's not working the biceps. That's a lie. If you do an exercise properly, it is targeting the area, but it just means like your traps are a little bit weak or your shoulders are a little bit weak, and it's helping to bring them up to speed as well. A good example is squats. For 38 years of squatting, I don't feel them in my quads. I feel them in my hamstrings. So my quads are still growing. That's what we need to understand. Focus on form, focus on what you can control, controlling the weight, focusing on good quality form, and just trust the process. You're going to be fine. Tim, how's it going, Tim? If doing Smith hack squats, would you prefer using one with a completely vertical track? It really depends on feel. You know, it really depends on feel. If you do a vertical track and it's coming down like this, you know, you could kind of lean back the opposite way. So your butt's getting further, you know, from your feet as you go down. You have to be kind of wedged in there properly. That you could do it the opposite way. Really, it comes down to feel, Tim. Anything we want to service on this one, which one really allows us the opportunity to get really good depth, and we really feel it working our quads if possible. Stein, happy Friday, Stein. On would it be similar to leverage squat? It depends on the setup, but yeah, it could be similar to a leverage squat. A leverage squat has the advantage of an angled foot platform, which kind of really is conducive for. Come here, buddy boy. I want to make sure my dog is not. So I'm getting a phone call. I want to make sure my dog is not chewing up the carpet. So it could be, but you know. It's in the same family, but sometimes we can get a little bit caught up on, you know, is this similar to that? The leverage squats, we were talking about this on Team Massive earlier today. The leverage squat's a very underrated exercise. So, you know, do I feel a Smith squat is equivalent? Well, it wouldn't be for me, right? Just because I really get a good feel out of leverage squats, but, you know, it's an equivalent exercise. It's at the same level. You just have to kind of dial it in to make sure you're getting everything out of it you can. Dungeons and dumbbells, or sorry, dumbbells and donuts. Sorry, got two guys on Massive Iron. One is Dungeons and Dumbbells, and one is Dumbbells and Donuts. And I'm always messing up your name. So what's up, Team Massive? First live I've caught in a couple of weeks. Appreciate you tuning in. Kwame, hey, Steve, I wanted to ask you if road cycling detrimental to making strength gains? No. I like lifting and cycling. Do them both. Do what you like in life. Life is too short. There's way too much fear in the bodybuilding world that like somehow the body is super fragile. It's the opposite. You know, if you do a little bit of cardio, you're going to lose gains or it's harder to make gains. This is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Is there a break-in period where you have to get used to the demands of doing both at the same time? Of course. Is that break-in period going to be different for everyone? Of course. But, you know, I've told this story a million times on here. Back in my day when I first really started to seriously lift in 86, 87, I liked basketball. I was a basketball player. I played intramural basketball and you know, college basketball for a small school and real small school. So don't get excited. It was just a crappy small school. But, you know, I never thought about like the impact of lifting and playing basketball or lifting and running or anything. I'd just go lift and I'd go straight to go and play basketball for a couple hours usually. And I grew like a weed because my food and my sleep were in place. So the best piece of advice I can give to you guys is don't feel like the body is fragile. It's not made out of glass. You're not going to kill gains. You're not going to even slow gains. This is just silly paranoid. You know what I find, and this might offend somebody, but in a general sense, it's pretty true. The more bodybuilder type of guys that have spent their whole life in bodybuilding, and to them, cardio is like 20 minutes on a treadmill. And I'm not being disrespectful by saying this. This is just my observation as somebody that's been in the industry and been around these guys. So there's a type of guy that's a bodybuilding guy that to them cardio is treadmill cardio. I used to be like that earlier on. But to them, you know, like going beyond that world, there can be a lot of fear, you know, of losing gains or criticizing gains. So in that kind of world, there can be a lot of fear of cardio. And we tend to look at things like long distance runners and say, they are skinny, so running long distance will make me skinny. Endurance training will make me skinny, right? And I will lose. That's nonsense, because I'm in the endurance running world to a degree, right? I've been around them. I've been at enough long runs with, 50 Ks. I've never done a 100-miler, but I've been at enough 50 Ks and endurance runs, 12 and 24-hour endurance runs, where I'm around these guys. And most of them are skinny because they don't lift, right? They like running. They don't like lifting as much. Some of them will lift like as much as your average gym person. There's some people that look fit from a muscular standpoint, obviously, but the idea that running makes you small or lose muscle size or any form of cardio is really juvenile. It's really regressive thinking, so to speak. Timothy, serious question. How many pounds of pure muscle do you think Kyriakos Grizzly has? I don't know. I don't know much about his stats. I don't know much about his supplement habits. So hard to say, my friend. Big Dan Cook. When doing Meadows rows, would you recommend? Yes. When doing any type of pulling or gripping, use grip support, guys. I get tendonitis questions. I get a dozen of them a week. I'm not even kidding you. And it's the number one injury. I don't care what anybody says. If anybody thinks there's an injury more prevalent than elbow tendonitis, it's simply not true. It's the most consistent injury question I get over and over and over again. Elbow tendonitis comes from over gripping, and in hypertrophy and strength training, our whole game is gripping barbells and dumbbells and machine handles. And that over gripping is an overuse, and it's going to lead to elbow tendonitis right here, that uncomfortable pain. And that can show up even on presses or on gripping the squat bar. So would you recommend straps? Yes. Would you shift the grip to the bar instead of the collar? It depends on your setup. There's different ways of doing them. I've seen some guys stand next to the bar and grab the short end. That could work depending on the leverage, anchor point, and the weight being used. You could, grab them on the thick end. I've been able to grab them on the thick end with VersaGrip Pros, and that worked okay. Biggest forearm pump of my life, but not exactly what I was going. But sometimes that's the game, right? We have to work the back, and something else is going to be hit. Like on back day, I don't think I've ever talked about this, but on back day, not any other day, back day, many times at 10 o'clock at night, I'm in bed and I'm getting forearm cramps. Even using VersaGrips, I get forearm cramps. So my forearms are getting very, very worked during back work. All right, Aberrant. And Dan, I'm going to give you the prize, Dan. I'm going to give you the DM me on Instagram. Let me see if I can find it here. DM me on Instagram, @BenTheBarman, or email me, benthebarman@gmail.com. Dan, I'll give you a t-shirt, a hoodie, a Massive Iron gym bag, or a Massive Iron creatine, Massive Iron whey, one of them, whichever one you would prefer. So congratulations, Dan. And that doesn't mean no one else is going to win. I might let somebody else win. How does adding in some variety start becoming counter to the idea of a program when it becomes the point instead of a tool? Like when you become obsessed with, like when someone becomes obsessed with frequency training. And this is kind of the point I'm trying to make with frequency training. When it is the thing instead of hard training and quality consistency and quality nutrition, when frequency is the thing, we are kind of, doing this, Did that scare you guys a little bit, my ugly face? But you know what I'm saying? But when like adding in variety becomes the thing, right? Like it becomes like I gotta add in variety or else I'm gonna, not build muscle. No. variety a lot, like adding in some exercises affords us the opportunity of hitting the muscles from different ways. So what do I mean? Week 1, you could do Arnold press. Week 2, you could do seated overhead press. Week 1, you could do Arnold press. Week 2, you could do seated or standing single arm overhead press. A little bit of variation. Week 1, you could do regular side laterals. Week 2, you could do seated side laterals, right? Or week 1, you could do seated side laterals. Week 2, you could do machine side laterals. So doing that is okay, but there's some lifts like I don't like to do that on squats. Like I like to connect with form every week. Deadlifts I find every other week is okay. I can do like deadlifts and then like shrugs or rack pulls every other week and I'm fine. I always want to stay connected with a bench movement either way, but you could do flat bench and then Larson the next week. You could do flat and incline the next week. So it's variety is a personal thing. We don't have to over obsess about working in variety, but just know, like, if there are more exercises you enjoy, then you can squeeze into 4 days a week. Then alternating AB in a reasonable manner is a good thing. It can provide some freshness to your training. It can hit a muscle group in some different ways. It's very much a very nice 2 thumbs up thing, but we don't have to chase it. When can it become counter? Not the only time it's really going to become counter is if we get too far from an exercise where we kind of detach from form, or if we start to think we want to do 3-week rotations. I don't like that at all. You could probably do some cases of 3-week rotations, like seated laterals, standing laterals, machine laterals in the 3-week rotation. It's an isolation lift. That would be okay. You could do maybe a rear delt. You could do your face pulleys, right? You could do on week 1, you could do bent over flies. Week 2, you could do rear delt swings. Week 3, shrugs, you could do behind the back shrugs. Week 1, you could do power shrugs. Week 2, you could do dumbbell shrugs. Week 3, that's not going to be counter. But on some exercises, you really want to, like the really big hitters, the really meat and potatoes ones, like you could alternate pendlay rows and dumbbell rows every other week. But some exercise, you have to determine what exercises you want to be doing every day. What exercises feel better done every week, not every day. David, thoughts on John Meadows? I did not meet John, but when I was at Tiger Fitness, when I was the editorial director at Tiger Fitness, I worked with John on content ideas. So I spoke with him on the phone several times, and we were trying to get John some love on the content side of Tiger Fitness so we could kind of get some exposure, maybe put out an article from John in our newsletter, so on and so forth. John was, and this is not a criticism, but I was trying to get John to do like a biceps workout, something really simple. And John didn't want to let any of his training stuff out. Not a criticism. That's just the way John was. He has his own workouts, his own system, and you had to pay for it, which is fine. I mean, that's fine. It's his system, his way of doing things, and I'm not being critical. But that's how John was, right? And it was hard to get information out of him unless you worked with him, which, look, I'm just going to be honest here. It's kind of sad because I think the world would benefit from knowing more about what is going on in John's mind and John's training. So I personally would like to know. Does that make sense? All right, Big Adam. Big, hairy, ugly dude. Happy Friday. Let me get a drink. You get a lot of questions in your Instagram account, a lot, regarding elbow overusage. And you recommend Versa grips. No real form cues. The only thing when you're using Versa grips is like you can really still grip hard, or you can kind of relax that grip a little bit. I can relax and cup on really heavy weight, even on really heavy dumbbell rows, and relax that grip and still able to move the weight. Some people are afraid of that because they feel like they need to work on their grip. Or, I mean, if you need grip work, do it after back work. Seriously, don't aggravate or encourage elbow tendonitis. It can be very uncomfortable. Big Dan, when finishing out a cut, do you try to hold at your finish weight for a period? No. You bounce right back into Gainesville. There's no benefit of holding. What I have clients do is we talk based on we'll look at history, like what was their history previously during a bulk, their calorie intake. What was their calorie intake during a cut? And usually after a cut, I'll bump calories up anywhere from 500 to 700 above where they were in the cut, and we'll do a test. I'll tell them to bump it up to a certain level and be super strict for 5 days. And each of those days, I want them to get up and weigh in. So super strict 5 days. What we want to see, obviously, when you come off a cut and you increase sodium intake and you increase carb intake and you increase overall food volume intake, you're going to see a slight increase in water retention in the body. It's not a fat gain. It's going to be a water retention increase. So during these 5 days, when you come out of a bulk or come out of a cut into a bulk, you have to be very consistent with your calories. We want to watch that water weight go up a little bit, a couple pounds, and then level off. And from there, we can start dialing in our bulk. Now, understand that if building muscle can obviously increase your metabolism very slightly, but it can also do some funny things. So you might have bulked at 2,900 calories last time, and you might find that you bulk at 3,100 this time. The body, we can't always assume that where we were last time is where we're going to be this time, because the body can do really weird things. I see this every day with my clients. That's why going by the numbers is most important. All right, donuts. First, dumbbells and donuts. I mess up your name every time. I'm sorry. What are some of the perhaps less obvious success indicators you look for over the course of a successful 3 to 6 month gaining phase? What mistakes do you see commonly made? Wow, this is a good topic. I think on a bulk, this isn't commonly made. I don't really see a lot of lifters doing this when they're working with me, and that's overbulking. But occasionally I'll get somebody that will, use their bulking period and have too much fun on the weekend. Like their weight is going up too rapidly. So I get this question a lot. Okay. So somebody's on a bulk, and on the weekend they blow out, right? Drinking the old brewskis and eating 458 chicken wings. And they come in heavy on that Monday and they start to panic and they want to cut their calories down to maintenance. Don't do that. Number one, you got to chill on all the binging during a bulk. We still have to be reasonably precise. That doesn't mean you can't have fun occasionally. But if you're doing it every weekend, you're going to put on fat. Because if you're in a bulk during the week and then you're in a bulk, fat bulk on the weekend, you're going to put on fat. So don't use a bulk as an excuse to fat bulk. We want to, my phone just keeps ringing like crazy. Should we answer it? No. We don't want to, on a bulk, we want to kind of we have to be precise. We're trying to build muscle. So you already have a calorie surplus, right? You already have the benefit of a calorie surplus. So we can't continue to eat like little piggies. So that happens occasionally, not often. Most of my guys are pretty reasonable. When I say guys, I mean guys and girls. But any other big mistakes? One of the most common, I would say, comes from the skinnier guy crowd. You know, the guy that is a little bit underweight or trending underweight, and they can be very hesitant to put on weight. And this is almost I'm not an eating disorder expert, nor do I even pretend to be. I'm just talking about general trends, but from the underweight side of things, and there's something that happens in the overweight side of things, and I'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. But on the underweight side of things, they can almost be hesitant to gain weight because it's more noticeable. Like they can lose their abs, or like if you're 147 pounds and you eat a big meal, you know, you tend to feel it more, right? You tend to be more aware of that bloat. Your stomach might look bigger. So this is very, very common with guys that are 140, 150, 155, even 160, 165, depending on their height, that they can sometimes be very hesitant to bulk. And we have to set aside fear and do what we need to do. Like, no one's going to get fat on a 3, 4, 5 month, 10-pound bulk. You're only 10 pounds away from, you know, where you were. So we have to relax a little bit. On the other side of the fence, you have some of the bigger guys, or trending bigger, this is a generalization, that will lose a little bit of strength and they'll panic, and they don't want to lose strength on a cut. So basically we can never get them down. The problem with this, and you're asking a bulk question, but this is kind of a common mistake. Like a guy that's 210, 220, 230, 240, or maybe even a little bit more, we can't get them down to actually bulk. So therefore, they're always at maintenance level, and they're never really in a gaining phase. So it's kind of a bulking mistake. Like the bigger guys, like, I don't want to lose strength. Well, you're not going to build muscle either if you're never going to be in a bulk. I mean, you have to pick what you want to do. At some point, you need to get off the golden throne and head in one direction. You know, if you're 230, 240 pounds, you can't just sit there, right? You're never going to be in a bulk. And if you cut, I'm going to lose strength. Well, there's no Harry Potter school, Hogwarts school of fat loss, right? And there's a lot of videos out there, how not to lose strength. This is nonsense, right? There's no magic way to, I can tell you as a coach, everybody handles a cut differently. Some guys lose, some guys don't like the feeling of hunger. They really struggle. When I say guys, again, guys and girls. And some do really well. I find the stronger guys tend to cut better. Like they're able to handle their work capacity tends to be a little bit more seasoned. But I don't know. I'm getting off the rails here. But guys that beyond that, the biggest mistake is not tracking weight, not tracking calories. Basically, excuse my language, but not really giving a fuck. Just wanting to gain or not. Guys will secretly want to gain or maintain the same weight in a recomp, and I got nothing for you. I got nothing for you. Like if you're at 170 and you want to pack on 10 pounds of muscle, but you don't ever want to go over 170, you are stapled to a scale weight. It's not the concept of recomping that I have an issue with. It's you are stapled to a weight, which is irrational. Listen, how many do you know this is true? You all know this is true. We tell everybody, don't worry about the scale. Look at the weight when they're looking at weight loss. Look at how you look in the mirror, right? That's what we tell people during weight loss. It's the same game. If you're going to attach yourself to a scale number, you need to attach yourself to results, right? And what can facilitate the results. I'm going to stay at 170 in recomp. Why? The fact that you are attached to 170 is troublesome, right? You should be attached to the best possible looking physique, right? And open to the idea that that might require some weight gain. I told somebody the other day they're 150 pounds and they don't want to gain weight. They're afraid of getting fat. And I said, what's your end goal? Well, I'd like to gain 20, 25 pounds of muscle. So you're 150 and you're attached to that 150 and you want to gain 20 to 25 pounds of muscle, but stay at 150. You know how many big guys I know at like 5'10" are 150? Zero. So we have to be realistic. And that can be an issue in the bulk as well. Sandra, how's it going, Sandra? Let's take workout hack squat. Why is there hype doing 20 reps? That's very fringe. I've never seen anybody hyped about. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not being dismissive, but the only hype over 20 reps I've seen is on squats. There might be a fringe guy that's hyped about 20 reps on hacks, but rep ranges don't matter. Hard training matters. Isn't 10 hard rep sets without much cardiovascular? It depends on the exercise. It depends on the individual. We were talking on Team Massive about a certain leg press that I like. And I can do 20 to 30 reps on it with like 800 pounds, deep reps. It's just the weird leverages of this leg press. And there isn't enough cardiovascular interference. It's there, but there isn't enough to prevent me from doing very high reps. So it can really depend exercise by exercise. Like on Romania deadlifts, by the time I get to 8 reps, I feel like I've just sprinted. Every exercise is different. We need to understand that. And the rep range we work in for that exercise has to be set up according to how we feel from a cardiovascular standpoint and getting in a reasonable amount of volume. Does that make sense? So say if we don't feel like lifting, going to the gym and do first set of first exercise. Yeah, if you don't feel like well, first off, I don't care how you feel, right? And you should be telling yourself too, I don't care how I feel. But yeah, you want to, if you're tired or whatever, short on time, you want to do the first set like normal training. And then if you have to cut the second or third set, that's what you would do. I'm doing 10-minute deadlift block, but it's hard to determine. Don't worry about that. That's not going to be something that you can determine your 1 rep max on. So if I do 1 rep max every 3 months, should I just do it? First off, I'm not a fan of that, frequent testing your 1 rep max that frequently, but guys are going to do it anyway. My only advice is if you're going to do it frequently, just do a proper warm-up protocol. You don't just do 135 by 5, 225 by 1, and then try to set up, there's videos on this channel about a proper warm-up protocol, so make sure you're using that. You also have to know the downsides. Testing your 1 rep max is going to come with potential downsides. So you have to understand the game you're playing, my friend. The greater the risk, the greater the reward, the greater the danger. So you have to know if I'm going to frequently test my 1 rep max, I risk all kinds of foul things. And anybody that doubts me here, go watch a few powerlifting meets. Somebody always gets hurt. And you're talking about a pool of 30 to 70 lifters. Those are slim odds. It's a much higher percentage of getting hurt at a powerlifting meet. If anybody says that singles, doubles, or triples are inherently safer, I've seen this tossed around. They really are a little bit detached from what occurs at powerlifting meets when you're pushing close to the edge. Is my Penley Road decent? 185 by 10. it's still like what I would consider late beginner, early intermediate. I mean, I'm trying to say this politely. It's okay, but I think our standards for penalty rows have to be not far off from our standards for bench. At my peak, I did a 4 or 5x5 strict penalty row, and my bench was like around that same range. That was when I was a fatty of, like 346 pounds. So they're pretty equivalent lifts. So when we look at a penalty row, we have to kind of, I'm not saying they're always going to be equivalent to your bench, but we have to kind of look at their numbers compared to a bench. As a 154 by 10 bench, it's decent, right? It's not weak, but I want to see you get 225 by 3x6 or 3x8. Then you're really hitting those intermediate levels. And most guys are never going to get to 275 by 3x5. And I think that's a really good strength level. That's like upper level. Most guys are never going to get to it. Yvonne, how's it going, Yvonne? Thanks for tuning in. You will do dumbbell rows to the day you die. Well, yes, I will. I'll do everything till the day I die, my friend. Because people are like, don't you fear lifting heavy and getting injured? Nah, I fear being weak. I fear being mentally and physically weak. Like the injuries from sitting on your ass, eating too much pizza, and dying from a heart attack as a weak, fat, fucking gluttonous, fucking slobuloid sitting on a couch with your never showering, with your ass so rancid and your skin so rancid it starts to meld with the fibers of the couch, right? And then you start pissing yourself and you have a heart attack or whatever. I'm just being, this is a little bit of humor, right? So don't take me as serious. It's a little bit of humor, but it's also a little bit of sadness. So I don't want to be that guy. So despite all my flaws and all the things I wish I could do better, and I hope you guys can hear this, like all the things you wish you could do better, that's fine. Be hard on yourself, but also never discount all the good things you are doing, right? This isn't a contest. I don't want to be better than Bob, who's sitting on the couch. Like Bob, my next door neighbor over here, Bob, whoever Bob is, I'm just making it up. Bob's eating cheaters, right? Drinking his Bud Lightyear and watching like whatever he's watching. Housewives of Georgia, right? In his undie bundies, in his tighty whities. Weighing at 342 pounds. I don't judge Bob because life is short and you have the right to find enjoyment wherever you want. I am not some king of the fucking fitness world. Doing what I like doesn't make me better than Bob. Bob's doing what he likes. Bob's picking the way he wants to die. And he's riding that horse. None of my fucking business. What I don't want to be is Bob. Okay, that's my decision. That doesn't elevate me above Bob. In the fitness world, we are better than Bob because Bob, look, I care about people. And do I want people to be healthy? Of course. And you have people in your life you want to be healthy. But at some point, we just have to meet them where they're at and not be holier than them. We have to, I am me and Bob is Bob. And this is how I'm going out. But one thing I'll tell you is I don't want to go out like Bob. The whole point is, like, sometimes we look at all the things that we are lacking in life. Like, I wish I was doing this more. I wish I was doing that. I do that all the time, self-reflection. I need to improve my breakfast again. I need to get back to this again. Right? But we can sometimes discount all the good things we're doing in life, which is a shame. You guys are doing a lot of good things, and just try to build on that slowly. But one thing I will never do, if I can help it, is go out like Bob. Hey, Steve, what are your thoughts on one set max efforts? No. I'm hearing that's no. Whoever's saying this is a patent idiot, and you can quote me, and you can all spam their email box. No. I've never met anybody that's ever said this. Or one set max. Sorry. One set max. When you said max effort, I thought you meant that can mean like one rep max. That's how I read it. Well, let me slow down. Let me repack this a bit. Okay. I got really fired up. One set, I was thinking when I saw max, I was thinking one rep max. So I apologize. One set, max. No. Well, first off, there's nothing wrong with training a set for as many quality reps as possible. I'm a big believer in the benefits of that. At least every one of my clients, at least one set is pushed for max safe reps. We do not train for failure. Saying we should train to failure on every lift is just idiocy. The demands of every exercise is different. So some exercises like dumbbell rows, if you go to failure, all that's going to happen is your speed is going to slow. You're going to reach some form of a mechanical failure, and there's really no punishment on your body. If you're doing squats or deadlifts or RDLs and you're trying to go to failure, you're going to tear your stuff up. So trying to place all exercises equal when it comes to training to failure. That's why we need to toss out the idea of training to failure. And we need to replace it with what I've talked about for over a decade, pushing a set for as many quality reps as possible, stopping that set when you feel like your form is going to break down or when you feel like you might fail on the next rep. There's no benefit of that rep where you're failing. Very trivial benefit. But there is benefit from pushing at least one set deep. Now, we have to look at convention, okay? We have to look at convention. What is kind of 99.999% of everybody that's ever gotten good results. Outside of convention, there's going to be fringe people, okay, that either do something wildly different, or here's the important point, they build their base doing what 99.99%, and then as they pick up injuries or war wounds or they age, they adopt a different training style. And all of a sudden they get on the internet and preach it. And I'm telling you, this is what's happening in many, many cases. Don't seek the fringe, okay? Seek convention and then evolve from there. We don't just move to some radical idea. Start at a centralized point, start at a reasonable point where 99.9% of lifters in the history of the universe have been at. Start in that reasonable area. And then a training variable I talk about over and over again is evolving training based on needs. So you're in that 99.99%, and you're like, I like Arnold presses more than I like seated dumbbell presses. You're evolving your training based on needs, reasonable swaps, reasonable changes. I don't like Arnold's at 8 reps. I like him at 12 reps. I don't know why, right? Evolving your training based on needs. I don't like 3 sets of Arnold's. I don't like 3 sets of 8 on Arnold's. I like 2 sets of 15. Okay. So that's reasonable, right? You're in the trenches and you're changing things based on what's happening in the gym. That's smart. Okay. Seeing some random on the internet telling you the optimal way. Any guy that's on the internet going, right, Mr. My dog's right. Fuck off, Optimal Bob. My dog's freaking out. Like, whenever you get that guy, shut the fuck up, dude. That's what you need to be like. Like, anybody that's talking like that, their head is wedged up their Kazuski. Optimal for you guys is getting into the gym and starting at around the 99.9% in evolving training based on needs. Does that make sense? Any clown, and yes, I'm calling them a clown because they're a short-sighted, narrow-minded, dogmatic clown, right? It's not that this stuff can't work. It's just that we don't run into a room saying this is optimal. It's not fucking optimal. Because we know 99.9% of every lifter that's ever had good results didn't do that. So therefore, it can't be optimal. That doesn't mean it can't be effective, right? If something was optimal and you had 200,000 lifters, that if you have 200,000 lifters, they're going to gravitate towards what's going to work, right? So if that was optimal, they would have gravitated towards that. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean it can't work. In fact, and I'll say this, if you give me a group of 50 schmuckos, okay, just a funny term, just humor, just my bad humor. You pluck 50 guys from the gym that have shitty results, and you give them to me for 6 months. We're going away into the woods with just a gym and some pork chops and some taters, right? I control your eating. I control your training. I'm taking 50 gym guys like boot camp for 6 months. And we only do, if I make them do one set hard 3 times a week, they're going to grow. They're going to grow because what they're doing at that level compared to the piss poor shit they were doing before, the fuckery that got them no muscle over 10 years, this is a huge step up, a huge step towards hard training. So yes, it can work, but you need to start at a place of more convention. And then don't just jump into somebody's pool. Evolve your training based on what's happening in the gym. I got guys that can only super high stress. They have family lives. They are super busy. They have important jobs. Fire department, EMTs. College professors. Guys with careers and a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility. They can't live in the gym. So we have to evolve training based on needs. We can't make them do 4 or 5 hard workouts a week. We have to kind of downgrade and like they're still going to get good results. But the one set for max reps crowd really needs to go kick rocks. We need to start at a place of convention. We need to be reasonable people. And we need to teach people to evolve from a place of convention, not a place of fringe, right? All right, let me get a drink here. All right, we're an hour and 9 minutes in. Before we continue, guys, if you're new here, please post up a question. I'll stay on as long as you guys have questions. And also, I'd encourage you guys to not just subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, but also hit the notification bell, because I've been doing this for 12 years, and I think I had 120 lifting videos up before I put up any content. So sometimes YouTube works against me. So if you guys could hit that notification bell, I would appreciate your support. James, and also just a reminder, I coach for a living. It's what I do. I'm not just a theory guy. I spent 12 years, really 15 years as an editor. I started my own website, muscleandbrawn.com, writing articles. I wrote for Female Muscle, Critical Bench. You can still find some of my really old articles. Then Muscle and Strength, and then Tiger Fitness. I've been around the block. I've worked with nearly everybody. That's I worked with a lot of these guys before they were even big names. You know, Sean Clarita back in the day when he was just a natural 15 years ago. But I've been doing this forever. And my background is grounded in knowing everybody, not everybody, literally everybody, but seeing all the information as an editor, and then coaching. Right, I've coached Special Olympians, I've coached teens, I've coached on the platform, and I coach people in real life. So what I do is grounded in all of these things. This grand combination of knowing people and seeing how they train, knowing the information and seeing how it unpacks, and training in the real world. So if you are frustrated with your results, coaching is what I do for a living. There's a coaching tab, and I'm not a check-in once a week guy. I try to build relationships with people, and I'm certainly not for everybody. But if you are interested in coaching and you're not satisfied with your results, please check out the coaching tab. There's a place where you can fill out a form and you can ask questions. There's you know, if you fill out the form, you're not required to sign up. But this is what I do for a living. I don't talk about it a lot. I don't push it a lot. Thankfully, because of my experience, you know, I get a lot of people coming to me, but I still want to work with good people that really want to kill it. So if you're one of those people, I would love to work with you. And if you want to take a look at the results of my clients, I post them up on Instagram when it makes sense, when it's okay for them. All right. Where were we? Sorry, let me get back to the comment. 1 second, guys. I'm just waiting for the comments to reload. I lost any info on the max weight amount from a standard plate, loadable high pulley system. Why isn't the comments loading? Sorry, I can't get the comments to load. I lost any info on the max weight amount for my standard plate loadable high pulley system. It's a budget Amazon type. Afraid it will snap. The only advice I have is to try and maybe get a new one. I mean, just use common sense. I have to refresh because the comments went away. So hold on a sec, guys. All right, I think the comments finally came back. Sorry, the comments disappeared, and I finally got them to come back. So I'm having a little bit of problems with the comments. 1 second. All right, I think we're good. We're having issues with the comments loading. Let me try one more time. I think we got it. Sorry, just give me a sec, guys. All right, I think we got it. I'm just trying to get to where a lot of the comments disappeared. All right, let me try this one more time. All right. All right, guys. Sorry, I've been having issues with the comments, and some of them dropped out. So sorry about that, James. I lost info on the what's it doing up here on the time? The only thing I would say is just be really, really careful with what you're doing. Don't push it more than you need to. Don't push it more than it makes sense. If it's getting rickety or rackety or whatever, you probably got to make sure that you maybe you might want to consider getting a new one. Don't rule out that possibility if you're using a piece of equipment that you're not really comfortable with. And I lost a bunch of comments, so I apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened, but I did lose a bunch of comments. So if I lost your comment, please post it up again. Phases of moving weight with good form and phases of mind-muscle connection. Your thoughts? It's all the same for me, Josh. I mean, you don't mind muscles. You don't mind muscle yourself into not pushing. That's all the same phase. There's really, really no difference. So, I don't like the concept because you're compartmentalizing things a little bit. It's all the same thing. If you want to chase mind-muscle connection and turn, the one thing I don't like is if you're trying to turn a compound lift into a isolation lift by, doing, let me get this brand stuff off here. You don't want to turn a compound lift into isolation lift by trying to feel the mind-muscle connection. Does that make sense? So you got to really be careful about that. You don't want to do that sort of thing. You want to be really, really cautious with that. And, just treat an isolation like an isolation and treat a compound like a compound. And, that's, when you get into the point where you get into the area of training where you're trying to turn a compound into an isolation to feel it, you're going to compromise form. And what's going to happen is that you are going to generally place more stress on your joints. So just be really, really careful with that. All right, guys, I'm not sure what happened, but we had a lot of comments drop out on today's live. So a bunch of your comments just disappeared, and I apologize for that. If your comment was between like 11:10 and 11:40, please consider posting it up because it just completely disappeared. I use VersaGrips. They're great for overload. Absolutely. They allow you to focus on the overload, and they're going to provide you with a good grip support where you can really get that good back feel. Liz Lips, how long will it take me to overhead press 135 with serious training? Hopefully a year. 135 by 5 is kind of my minimum standard. Let's kind of get to 135 by 5 and then kind of go from there. Matt, I wanted to thank you for guiding me to hitting a 200 kilo deadlift. My pleasure, Matt. And thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to help you. MG254, how much of 1 rep max should I do working sets with when doing high volume? You don't ever really want to train. There's not a lot of value in doing work above 85%. 85% is going to be around the 5 rep range. But if you're at 85% and you're trying to do repeatable volume like fives, it's going to really, as you gain fatigue, it's going to really cause issues. So, I generally, for hypertrophy, this is going to sound surprising to some of you, but you really don't want to get above 82.5% of your 1 rep max. Because if you think about it, if you're doing, say, a cluster of 5s, If we look at a 1 rep max calculator, let me just pull that up. 1 rep max calculator. And I'm gonna pull this up for you guys. Let's see if I can share the screen. All right, so this is a 1 rep max calculator. It's got Ultra Beauty. My wife's probably looking at Ultra Beauty. Let's say your 1 rep max is 400. Okay, so down here, I don't know if you could see it. 5 is going to be about 87.5% of your 1 rep max, give or take. But we kind of say 85 for just, we'll just say 85. So if you're doing repeatable sets, like you're trying to do a 5x5, it's not going to be right at, 85%. It's probably going to be 82.5 or 80%. So really the lowest repeatable weight you want to do when doing volume is probably 80 to 82.5%. Does that make sense? So, Big Bill, happy Friday and massive crew. Do you have an opinion on these weight loss drugs? No, I don't I don't live in that world, and I'm not being dismissive, but I don't really care. I don't really care about them. It's nothing, important to me. I don't live in a world of drugs. I don't care about. I'm not going to judge anybody on, TRT or whatever. I really don't care. Like I grew up in the Arnold area. All my heroes took steroids, but when it comes to drugs and when it comes to weight loss drugs, I'm not going to sit and pretend it's not a complex topic. But it's not anything I care about. I don't know enough. I'm not educated enough to comment. So I'm not going to insult you guys and be one of these YouTubers that, just acts like he knows everything about everything. I don't follow this stuff. I don't have time to follow it. I have no opinion simply because I have no education on them. Big Rob, guys, get your questions in. Just a reminder, a lot of the questions between like 11:15, 11:30 got bumped off by the system somehow. I apologize. That's YouTube. So if I missed your question, please post it up again. Check your question to make sure it wasn't knocked off the board. Hey, Steve, have you ever hit a point in your lifting journey where you felt like it was needed to just cruise, hit maintenance mode? Yeah, there are times like this. When I was running a lot, I didn't really have time to, train like I wanted to train. So it was more maintenance. When you get to the point where you have pretty much all the muscle you ever want, sustaining that muscle is really, really easy. It's really not challenging at all. It's not very difficult to, sustain muscle mass. You can pretty much, as long as you're training reasonably, you can drop the volume. You can not push for PRs. It's super easy to maintain. So there are some times like I have clients that, might be taking summer where they just want to hold weight. They don't want to bulk. They don't want to cut. Some people, some people just, they just want to do that. There's a period like where they just don't want to bulk. They don't want to cut it. It's a 2-month period. I just want to hold my weight steady and be a normal human for a while. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not difficult to maintain, etc. Mark, good day, coach. Just finished a late night leg workout. Hope it went well, Mark, and I appreciate your support as always. Big Bob, do you believe that if hypertrophy becomes the main goal, there comes a time? No, I don't believe that at all. This is so arbitrary. Like, I'm sure there's some people out there that talk about it, but no, I don't believe it because it's a personal decision. Do you need to deadlift to build muscle? No. Do you need to deadlift to build muscle? No. Do you half the deadlift or do the hex bar deadlift or do any variation of the deadlift? No. But if you like it, is there any need to remove it? No. In fact, your lower back over time, your lower back's going to get stronger. You're probably going to fall in love with the exercise. And, there's really going to be, you probably won't want to get rid of it. The only time to get rid of an exercise is when it's really, really bothering your recovery, or really aggravating an injury, or really aggravating your lower back. Alonzo, Monday chest tries, Tuesday back buys, Wednesday shoulders. It would work, but Alonzo, the one thing I'm going to say is, like, don't simply stick to that and feel like you have to stick to that if you need recovery, right? If you need an extra recovery day, work an extra recovery day. Allow some flexibility. We don't want to staple ourselves so much to a program to the point where, it's going to cause us to wear down or to overreach a little bit. Like, if that's beating you up, you need to insert rest days, so don't feel like 4 on 1 off till you die. Be comfortable with inserting rest days if you need them. Harud, happy Friday. Harud, thanks for joining in. Big Bill, I'd bump out incline dumbbell press. We're talking about Ryan Terry's video. If you guys missed it, check it out at the beginning of the program. I'd bump out incline dumbbell. Oh, I see Stan Strength in the mix. Stan, do you want to join me? I don't know. Can I add you? Let's see here. Let me see if I can give him an invite. Stan, I don't want to give away my message here. I don't want to give away my. I thought there was a way I could message him. No. Where were we? Sorry. We're talking about Ryan Terry's video. And just give me 1 second. I'm gonna message Stan here. So just hold on. I'm gonna see if he wants to come join me. If not, no big deal. No big deal if he doesn't. I don't want to throw anybody in the mix. But if you're up for it, Stan, you're watching, just go ahead and pop on. All right, where were we? We're talking about Ryan Terry's video. I'd bump out incline dumbbell press, leg curls, calves, tricep extensions, and abs. Yeah, there's a lot of good things that work in there. You got squats alone. Like, for legs, you really need another quad hitter. And back, did he even have a big dumbbell or barbell row, or a big row in the mix? I don't know. He kind of got put on the spot, so he kind of got put on the spot, a little bit. And I'm not sure I could, pull out the best 10 exercises on the spot. Clue, I bulked 12 pounds over 3 months. How inefficient is it? It's not really inefficient. It's a little bit more on the aggressive side, but telling people to gain 10 pounds on a bulk over 3, 4, 5 months is a general guideline. If you're a little bit over, a little bit under, it's not critical, right? It's not like if we don't nail the math perfectly, we're in trouble. But you're only 2 pounds over, right? Some of that could have been water weight. That's fine. It's not a little bit more aggressive is fine, but the only downside is you have to, cut. So you have to be really efficient at cutting. That's absolutely fine. Paladin, how do you account for water weight fluctuations on a cut? Well, initially, like the first 5, I kind of have a 5-day period where whatever change happens over the first maybe 5 days max, whatever happens over the first 2, 3, 4 days, I just kind of ignore. And then when I'm doing a cut, I'll look at the weight after that. So let's say you're at 188. And the first 3 days of your cut, you get down to 185. and then you hit kind of a slow day. I would then look at losing 10 pounds from that point. Come here, buddy boy. My dog's downstairs barking. Come here, buddy. So you kind of have to pick a point after the first 3 or 4 days on a bulk or cut where you kind of start at that point, if that makes sense. All right. What's up, Steve Parsa? I just tried a 10-minute deadlift block and I really liked it. If I got 19 reps in, how much weight? 5 pounds. Just allow your connective tissue to get up to speed. I think Carol's here. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Man, it's been a crazy day. I got my phone ringing off the hook. We had spam comments and then Stan.
Yeah, I saw that. I was just like, oh, wow, it's one of those days today, I guess.
Yeah, I even got an internet stalker going on. Like, I got some, like, I put up my coaching special with my WhatsApp number.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this guy, like, calling me different numbers, like a robo dialer, asking me to take my shirt off.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's one of those weeks. So anyway, I'm just going to wrap up this question. I'll get on the stand strength and introduce who the stranger is. If you get a 19 reps on a dead, just bump 5 pounds, allow your connective tissue to adapt. Small little steps up aren't going to limit your strength progression. If anything, they're going to allow your connective tissue to adapt. So this is Stand Strength. And it's not. I don't think we have our names on here, but Stan, can you introduce yourself and tell folks where you are from, what your channel is?
Yeah, so my name is Karel the King, Stand Strength on YouTube. So message of my channel is start where you stand. I think that when it comes to fitness, we kind of get all caught up in trying to have the perfect starting point. And the most important thing is actually just committing to where we are at and putting on all the effort we possibly can. So yeah, that's my channel, like power building content, strength, size, fitness, all that.
Yeah, so you guys make sure you check him out on YouTube, and you post on Instagram, but I don't think you're as prolific as I am.
No.
Did I catch you at a bad time, or did I suck you into the vortex?
No, like usually on Friday mornings I take it like at a much slower pace. I got a lot of the stuff done during the week, and then Muhammad Tyson wanted to say thank you. Really appreciate the support. And then usually on Fridays it's like a much slower paced day. Still got to work out, and I'm starting to run again, which is something I left in the comments. Yeah. So one thing that I kind of like thought to myself is, I'm sure that there's some amount of like, I guess, interference that can go on if you run seriously when it comes to your lower body lifts. However, one thing I kind of just thought to myself is, well, if I'm that out of shape, I feel like I should probably focus on running just a bit more. And then also, as I mentioned, I want to be as strong and as big as my health allows. So right. I think sometimes, when you're at the elite of the elite levels, oh yeah, most definitely, like you make that sacrifice, but I'm not there. So I think making the choice to prioritize health, at least for some time, is reasonable.
Well, I would tell you, like, when I got into running, there was the movie The Christmas Story, where the kid wants the Red Ryder BB gun. Mm-hmm. And mom's like, you're going to shoot your eye out, kid. Everybody was like, you're going to shoot your eye out. You're going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a big dude. And, you're not. You're a bigger guy as well. And I mean that in a good way. I mean, anybody that sees your physique knows you have plenty of muscle. But the one thing I learned is, like, if a bigger guy has a lot of muscle mass, I never got injured, and I've run over 7,500 kilometers on trails. I fall every time. I mean, I'm always tripping over a root or something. Mm-hmm. But I think your injury risk is low because of your tendon and connective tissue strength. You need to run. You need to learn to run, not for PRs, but at conversational pace. And the best thing probably for your joints is to run on a trail. People don't like to hear that, but running on pavement will beat you up, especially if you're a bigger dude.
So true. So true.
Do you
Yeah,
have any
like
place to run near you on a trail?
unfortunately not. Usually, if I do run on a trail, it's just like at the parks in around my neighborhood, and I just like go on the grass area right next to the pavement. And so
Right.
at least it's somewhat softer. But yeah, when I was living in Washington State, that's where I had access to like basically all the trails and a new one every single day, every single week. So I really liked it there. In Vegas, everything is like either dirt or concrete. So there we go.
Stand strength is standing for strength training. He is the last one left. We might be the last two left. I don't know.
It'll be a while till the pendulum swings back, but I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get to everybody's questions. So guys, you can keep posting up your questions, but like you don't mind talking a little bit for maybe half an hour, do you?
No, not at all.
Okay, just let me know if you got to go. So, like I've seen the pendulum swing all over the place. When I started my website in 2007, I mentioned that full body workouts were viable, and people were calling for my head. Literally, I was asked to be fired from my job for such a scandalous belief that bodybuilders could do full bodies. And then we went all the way to the other side where we had minimalistic training, very powerlifting influenced. And now it's kind of swinging back with guys like Basement Bodybuilding and Jeffrey Verity Schofield, where they're not strength obsessed, and that's okay, right? And that's why when we talk about power building, somebody asks, there was a question about power building in here somewhere. Hold on. Did it disappear?
I think it's from Barbell Bryce. Cool guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there's been, like, I think that's a reason why I like to differentiate power building, because you have guys like Jeffrey and you have guys like Basement Bodybuilding that they're going to attack progressive overload and they're going to get stronger over time. But I don't know where you stand, but I like being strong and I like building muscle. What is your personal philosophy or views on when you train and how much you like strength training?
So for me, if someone were to tell me that getting the most strength and getting the most size would come from, I don't know, sticking on machines all the time and and training like that, I would actually hate training, like fundamentally. So for me, I just kind of really enjoy the barbell. I love the feeling of it in my hands. That's kind of sus, but but like training with a barbell, it's just so much more fun, engaging for me, and it's what I want to put my effort into. It's something that I do. So I'm a martial artist and I'm a martial arts instructor also. And something I tell people is that, sure, if your end goal is to learn how to fight, I can recommend to you like doing this, this, and this, and like you're going to be just fine. But if you really, really want to learn this martial art, even if it's fringe, even if it kind of sucks in terms of fighting, if that's what you want to do and that's what you want to put your heart into, who am I to stop you? And you're going to become really, really good at that thing. So when it comes to the barbell, what I feel like no one is particularly arguing against is the fact that it is very effective at building size and strength. And even if it's not per se the most, even if it's not the most time efficient, or stimulus to fatigue is a very common talking point nowadays, it's just, well, I'm going to put all my heart and effort into this, and I know for a fact I'm going to be getting size and strength back. So it's almost irrelevant what other training modalities are out there, so long as I'm training sensibly.
Yeah, and sensibly is the key. Like I get a lot of, like you mentioned the word interference from running, and there we tend to, like in our world more than anything, we tend to worry about interference or two different modalities or two different things. Not jiving like muscle and strength training. I've never had an issue. I'm not saying that can't be an issue for other people. I think a lot of it's mental and a lot of it's allowing yourself the time to grow conditioning wise. Does that make sense?
100%. Because like one thing I think too is like, given some of the criticisms against like let's say power building, one thing that I will kind of point out all the time is that size and strength, like there's the amount of interference you possibly could see is pretty minimal. Only like, at the highest of levels, but even then, there's some modifications that you can make. There's like things that you can do for your own personal programming that can definitely bypass that to some extent. And like they're just so closely related that trying to pursue them at the same time just seems reasonable. When it comes to, of course, running and stuff, like I just kind of like found that it's just in the dose, so I'm not sprinting. I'm like, and learning how, and like as you mentioned, learning how to like maintain that conversational pace, like learning how to pace out your training and whatnot. Like that's a skill regardless of your goal. So that's something I think we might miss out on every now and then when we talk about like power building.
Yeah, this might sound funny to people, but when I'm trail running, there's times when old couples will almost be catching me, walking their dog. Like I run so slow and I'm in such a zone that my wife can walk alongside of me. But the thing is, like, I'm keeping my heart rate at like 130 to 134, kind of in the sustainable area. And when I go out on a 12-hour run or a 20-mile run, this they don't know my wife is like my wife, so people are like, there's a power lifter out there. And I'll start out like the turtle, and then half of them fall out, and I'm still going because I'm so used to sustaining that pace. And I've never found running in that area really to be anything that couldn't work well with strength training and muscle building. So that's my opinion. Power building, just one more point on power building. Back around, I started using the term, I think around 2007. I just wrote an article and mentioned it. And I never really did the research on the term. And I never really honestly followed who was using it, where it's been used. And people, and me and you were talking about this a little bit on DM, but the reason to use it is because I love strength training, but you don't have to love strength training to bodybuild. So they're not the same thing, correct?
Yep. 100% agree.
So I've seen some arguments that power building was just bodybuilding and stealth. I don't believe that.
Yeah, because like if bodybuilding was the only final goal, then eventually someone will ask you like, well, this is probably better for XYZ reason, like you get more stimulus fatigue ratio, or you can do more volume, or you can handle it with more frequency or something of that nature, and then the amount of total work that you can put into this exercise is better. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I love barbell bench pressing, like simple as that. So even if it were to be found that I'm doing something suboptimal just because I really enjoy it, the fact that I'm choosing that option like 10 out of 10 times, I think is sufficient reason to say like, hell yeah, at the end of the day, I'm a power builder. I love doing this exercise. Like,
I love what you just said. You're choosing to do something because it might seem suboptimal. And I think that's a big point that can get lost in this discussion. I get questions all the time, and I'm sure you get them all the time. So one of the questions earlier today was, I want to bike and lift. Like, do what you love. Life is too short. Find the path along the journey, right? I mean, just start the journey and you'll find the path, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think like this is my personal take on some of the issues when it comes to like questions we get asked all the time. I would tell people to prioritize being genuine over being optimal. Like if your goal is genuine to yourself and you are genuinely making progress to that goal, who cares what the upper limit of that is? Who cares what scientific support it has? It means nothing. Like if you are honest with your goals and you have good metrics in place that actually show you're reaching it or getting closer to it, you're fine. And I think that kind of gets lost quite often.
I think in life we stand to learn the most and inspire the most when we take roads that aren't expected. not for show or not for internet clout, but when we do what we love and then we just set out on the path and then we end up in a place. I never set out to lose 100 pounds and make a body transformation, right? But I think when we get to the end and we look back and we're like, wow, I didn't even think this was possible. My whole life was I didn't even think this was possible. So I want to ask you about something you just mentioned.
Sure, yeah.
Stimulus to fatigue. It's like I twitch every time I hear it. I was just wondering, like, I don't know. I never really overthought it, but every time I hear stimulus to fatigue, I'm like over in the corner looking for some medication.
Yeah, just something inside you just snaps. It's like, it's a talking point that exists, and I feel like it's one like similar with power building. You know, it's one of those terms that exists out there, and we can kind of try to dismiss it as much as possible, like, hey kid, just work hard. But at the same time, like, they're always going to be lashed onto this idea. And one thing I kind of remind myself is that as difficult as it is to have these conversations about topics that I think are just kind of, for lack of better words, dumb for most people, like, it's not, you don't need to worry about that, but you're really worried about it right now, is that it's up to me to not just dismiss it. It's up to me to kind of like put it in the right context, so that way they can come to the conclusion informed, like, oh, it's not really that important, I just need to work hard. And if you have certain things in place, a sensible exercise selection, sensible exercise progression, and you can learn how to auto-regulate your training to manage fatigue, by the time you get to something like stimulus to fatigue ratio, it's like you're just like, oh, doesn't really matter to me right now, I'm good.
Yeah, one thing I've always preached is, we talked about this earlier, someone asked about doing one set to failure training, and I told them we should start in the more conventional area and then evolve based on needs, like what's happening in the gym. Like for me, I only do one set of dumbbell rows right now because it's taxing. And, I like to do only 2 sets of deadlifts because it's taxing and I want more time to do other things. But I think sometimes we try to gravitate towards concepts like one set to failure, or worrying about stimulus to fatigue, rather than just going into the gym and letting all that work out and giving ourselves the freedom to evolve in that area.
Yeah, definitely. Because like, I remember when I was first starting to lift, people would accuse me a lot of program hopping, but it was just me tweaking like the sets and reps. It was me like tweaking like where I place the exercise in the program. And I was like, well, the progression is the same, the exercise selection is the same. Like, the only thing I'm changing really is just like certain parameters and tweaking them. So I wouldn't really call that program hopping. Like like program hopping is more like, your split changes, like you have to do all these like weird crazy things to try to like eke out like a 1% change when all you could have done is just do the workout again. But yeah, so when it comes to those small iterative changes, I think part of it is because they're just not confident enough with being okay with, maybe this will work out well and maybe it won't. But I'm just like, hey, like, if you really wanted to, I don't know, talk to that girl, talk to that guy who's like, you think is interesting, like, it might work out, it might not. But like, if you want to live with like always wondering what if, then you're gonna live being small forever.
I've this might sound scandalous, but there was a period around 2007, 2008, 2009 where I was creating a lot of things and trying a lot of new programs in my home gym. I ran rest pause for a whole year. And I learned about West Side back then and tried things, and I learned about 5x5s and the Texas method and tried things. I think sometimes program hopping, if you are actually running the program longer than a week, can be educational. Kind of when you're in the late intermediate stage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Because so, like if you fall into a ditch, like the worst thing you can do is like keep digging, right? And like sometimes you find out you're in a ditch, like pretty late into the process, but sometimes it's like, oh man, I just fell into it and I'm like, oh, let me get out of there right now. And then this is just like a side note, but one thing I will say is like, I always thought that when it comes to exercises, you always have to do 3 sets or 4 sets. And then I remember watching a video of yours where you said you only do 2 sets of dumbbell rows. And I was like, oh man, that sounds like so nice. So I gave that a try and I was like, oh, this was perfect. So I was like, all right, cool. Maybe 2 sets are not that bad. Like, so I think it's just like all about trying, you know?
Right. I mean, like RDLs, 2 sets, I'm over them. You might not be over them, and anybody watching might not, but I'm done. I'm so over RDLs after 2 sets. And that's, that just allows me to enjoy training. Is it optimal? Who cares? This isn't life or death, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to answer some questions?
Yeah, sure. There's some good ones in there.
Let's see what we got. Harut, been getting asked more questions from younger guys lately. I try to answer with concepts, but they seem to only want direct answers. Am I being an a-hole? I'll let you tackle this.
I mean, you could there's like, I see both sides of it. So on one hand, right, if you are offering concepts and they want direct answers, the ones who want direct answers, in my opinion and what I've observed is that sometimes they'll filter themselves out of the gym. Because like there's not that many direct answers other than like, like be reasonable and work hard and be consistent, right? So when you offer more concepts and whatnot, those people will appreciate it a lot more and take it a lot further. And but there are some direct answers that you can give, and it also depends on the questions too. I want to like defend the people asking these questions, because young guys, they don't know what they're doing, so they also don't know what are the good questions to ask. So sometimes it's on to the more experienced people to, try to find what's at the heart of the question, what they're really trying to figure out. And from there, then you can provide a much better answer. And sometimes at that point, they might be more open to receiving a more conceptual answer than just a straight up like, oh no, you have to do it exactly like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of times on Instagram, I like asking for questions. I mean, I just like getting up and having questions to answer. And sometimes when you're tired or your wife just yelled at you for not taking the trash out, you're grumpy, right?
Yeah,
like, just train hard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could say that to every question.
Yeah,
just try to get the most out of a set. But that's what I understand. And I always have to remind myself, give them an actionable step that's at their level. Like on lat pull downs, try to control the weight down or try to get a little bit of a back stretch before, a little bit of things that they'll always remember or an actionable step. You don't have to give them all the bricks to build the wall, but at least one, for the next step. So I think that's and look, you also have to understand that there's a good chance 80% of the people that ask you a question don't really care for the answer. They just want to talk to you because you're the big guy, or they're trying to look for you to say something that fortifies what their beliefs are. So never give advice with the expectation that somebody's going to give a shit.
That's a good point. And like, I think too, when it comes to like us, like giving people advice, I think we should like, approach it with some level of like, I don't know, like humility for a lack of better terms. It's like, I'm not going to like, he's not going to ask me a question and I'm not going to give him an answer that's going to change his life forever. It's probably going to change his life for like maybe like 2-3 weeks at most. So I don't need to like, it's not that important. And if they are like that serious about it, it'll be a conversation more than just, hey, one-time question.
Right. Big Vince Jackson. Vince is Vince, ex-baseball player. See him a lot on Instagram, and I appreciate his questions. Don't know if comments disappeared, but been doing bro split and love it. Want to shorten rest times, though. Benefits of doing that. I'm just gonna say really quick, Vince, I would encourage you, like on the big compounds, to try to keep them natural. And then on machines, whatever, I don't have a problem doing 30 to 60 seconds of rest in between, like machine shoulder presses or side laterals. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Like on the compound movements, go when you're ready, or if you do want to have some amount of restriction, because you either lose focus and then you're resting too long. 2 minutes is about the minimum I would go with most compound exercises. And then when it comes to all the isolation exercises, whether that be machine, dumbbells, even, you can definitely run something like, running the rack or drop sets or rest pause, things of that nature to like put in more time. And like the fact that he loves his training, I think is really good. And then the benefit of shortening rest times, in my opinion, depending on how you do it, you either have a dense amount of hard work done in a short amount of time, or you can fit in more work for the amount of time you're given. So kind of like how you have your 10-minute deadlift blocks.
Right.
You're just able to put as many reps as possible within that 10-minute time frame. You can do something a bit more condensed with certain exercises. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll do like timed sets. So let's say on a tricep extension, I'm gonna do 2 minutes of as many as I can, rest pause style, rest for about 1 to 2 minutes, then 1 minute, then rest 1 to 2 minutes again, then 30 seconds. And I just try to go about it that way. So that way it's time based. I get more of that density, but then I also like shove as much work into that a block of time as possible. And I think that's really good just because over the long term, the total amount of like work you've done will just, compound into big triceps.
I you mentioned time sets. In my world, we call them block sets. They're just blocks of time, but they're the same thing. I mean, once I get past like the big hitters, I do have a history of like doing 5x10 on seated cable rows with a minute of rest between. Because you have to ask yourself, what is the downside of rest? If an exercise is not going to punish you, then all you're doing is creating more density, which can have some benefits from a hypertrophy standpoint. Like density training or more work in a shorter period of time. But then again, it might shorten the workout. So I don't know. It just depends on what you like. Train hard, right? Train hard. Big James, does having a pump or not tell us anything during a workout? I'll let you go. I have some thoughts, but I'll let you go.
So for me, I always tell people like a pump is not indicative of muscle growth, but it is kind of important. So something I feel like when it comes to questions about the pump, they're also kind of attaching with it the idea of like the mind muscle connection. And I'm just like, well, if you can't just think your way through a pump. And sometimes I tell people like, listen, with the equation of mind muscle connection, how about we just focus on building the muscle first, and over time you'll get better at feeling it. So that's like my thoughts on it. It might not be the most accurate, and it might actually be somewhat wrong, but like honestly, just build the muscle to be as big as possible. And even if you're not feeling it right now, eventually you'll get better at feeling the weights and connecting with it just by virtue of it being actually bigger.
I will say I never chase the pump, but there are moments when it's very like I get tricep pumps a lot when I'm working my triceps hard enough. So it is an indicator that I am pushing my triceps hard enough, but I don't get bicep pumps, even if I train them at the same level. So my most satisfying, this is going to sound very very, very selfish, but my most satisfying pump is a shoulder pump because we live in a weird world with overhead presses. Let me unpack this a little bit. So there is some backlash against shoulder presses because they work the front delts. Okay. We don't apply the same, like if we're going to use that logic, don't do overhead presses because they stress the front delts heavily. Well, bench press does the same thing. So, why are we not doing overhead presses? One thing I've found is when I'm doing overhead press, like 2 days ago, I did Arnold presses first, and then I did pin presses. Well, I actually did Arnold's and then side laterals and then pin presses. My side delts are just pumped and in pain, and so are my rear delts, and so are my traps. And I've always found incredible side delt pumps from overhead work. And the reason why I find that satisfying is because there's so many voices in the industry that don't like overhead pressing. for delt work, or they don't even consider it a side delt exercise. So that's my personal like little thing in my little world. I have a side delt pump, and everybody else can kick rocks.
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, what do you think of this whole overhead pressing thing? I mean, I sometimes it confuses me, so I like to hear, what other
Yeah. So from where I've come to that issue, or like and whatnot. So the people or the criticism that I'm most aware of is just like the bench press like carryover, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying it doesn't really carry over to your bench at all. And yeah, that's a accurate statement for the most part. Like, but I mean, it is a prime mover in the bench, and if it gets bigger over time, it'll just leverage into an improved amount of performance. So I do think it actually does have more carryover than people give it credit. But for as far as like the amount of time and effort you'd have to put into it, that's what takes away from your time and effort from benching, and that's where I think the lack of carryover or the detriment starts to show itself. However, I just want big shoulders. So like the overhead press is one of the ways to stress like the entirety of the shoulder. And as a result, me not having it in my program would only cause me to miss my goal rather than reach it.
Yeah, I understand from a powerlifting standpoint. And there was does one drive the other? Well, I don't worry about that as much as I try to worry about making every movement pattern strong, and whatever shakes out in that, wash is good by me.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say there's no advantage in keeping any movement pattern weak. There's no advantage in that. So people can do with that what they want. Big Logan, my comment was lost. Sorry. I didn't dig barbell rows or the variants. I just attacked dumbbell rows hard, chest support rows. Do you have good alternatives in place for muscle and strength? Do we have good? So what are your thoughts on back training? I have very strong thoughts on regular barbell rows, but I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the back should be trained every training session. So I train for about 4 days a week right now, or at least, if not every session, at least 4 days a week. So I typically program upper lowers or full body training, and the back is maybe this comes from the conjugate side of things when I was really, I guess, brought up in that. And if you have a big back, you'll bench a lot. If you have a big back, you're going to deadlift a lot. If you have a big back, you're going to feel stable with the squat on your back. So when it comes to strength, there's no downside to having a big, strong back. So when it comes to the question, though, about good alternatives for muscle and strength, the first important thing that I would consider is like what kind of strength? Just overall carrying strength, just overall yoke strength, or do you want it to have some amount of carryover to your deadlift? Because if deadlift performance is what is embedded in that goal of strength, at least in this comment, I think that having some type of free supported or free unsupported row, so either a barbell row, pen lay row, even a seated cable row, is really good, just because it forces you to have full body tension, which is what you will need in a deadlift. So if you don't like the barbell rows or their variants, something that is unsupported, so even like just a cable row, like that you see in like every single gym, where chest is not on some type of implement, I think that's like a good place to start at least.
I love the seated cable row. It's probably my favorite cable lift of anything. And the dumbbell row is good. The chest supported rows are fine. I have no issues with them. You have the dumbbell. You can do them with dumbbells or the chest supported machine. I don't personally like standing barbell rows. I just find them too much pressure on the lower back. The more weight you have, the more upright you need to get. That's why I like pendlay rows. But I will say this, and I'd like your thoughts. I don't like when I see somebody, a couple thoughts here, and you guys can attack me if you want, but when I see somebody doing like a mind muscle connection row with 40 pounds, like your backpack weighs more than that, dude. Like your mom's purse weighs more than that. Like I'm not against that, but like I don't think you can build a big back without having some pure raw strength, like some bear level strength in some exercises. Would you agree or disagree?
No, I'm in full agreement with that. The optimal bio, that's why people have like that aversion to wanting to use that word now, but that biomechanically optimal exercise variations and whatnot. Can you get big with them? I'm sure someone who actually built their muscle and built their strength with other exercises can, because their ability to feel their muscles is generally improved. But when it comes to
Carter just walked through my brain when you said that.
yeah. So I'm just like, it's not like if I prescribe that exercise to someone who's a complete novice that they're going to grow into that person. They never will. Like, I think it's disingenuous to say, like, I like the garden analogy when it comes to building muscle. Like, we are just trying to set the environment for muscle growth. And I think it's disingenuous to say, like, okay, I have spent years tending my garden with this kind of soil, this kind of water. And then, all right, cool. This new product came out on the market. Now I'm going to treat my garden with that and it's growing again. It's like, hey, man, like, you can't just like tell someone to bypass all those other years of hard work that you've done and expect them to get the same results as you. It's we don't expect that in any other sport. Like for example, if someone is really good at a baseball and they change their technique toward the latter half of their career to manage whatever injuries they've accumulated, or like the certain amount of like skills that they've like accumulated or whatnot, right, or capacities, and then they teach someone new to do it just like that, they're not going to get the same benefit.
No, you're right. And this is something that I have tried to stress over the years. Like, when you look at how someone is training now, that's fine. But you also have to look at how they were training when they built their 90%. Like, I talked to Mr. Olympia, Frank Zane, and he's known for being a mind muscle feely guy, right? But when I interviewed him, he said, back in the day, they didn't have powerlifting. They had what was called the odd lifts, which were the powerlifting lifts. And he said he was pretty strong on the odd lifts, right? And that's squat, bench, and dead. Like he said, I could only squat 405. But you know what? That's more than most of us will ever squat.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure in Frank, he was probably doing 405 by 10. Right?
Yeah. Because it's pretty common, like toward the latter half of Arnold's career, he also started using a lot more of the of machines and like certain other exercises and whatnot. And I think the reason for that is just by virtue of how strong, absurdly strong he got with the barbell exercises. It was kind of like a if-then statement. And people are just kind of skipping to that second half without like going through that first initial part, which will take years.
Yeah. So it's just something for everybody to think about. And when it comes to sustaining mass, it's super easy. There's a question down below, and we'll get to that in a second, about somebody said running 20 miles, don't you lose mass? It is so easy to maintain mass once you have mass. If you saw my training during my running years, it was a joke. I mean, it was literally laughable. I would 2-3 times a week, not a lot of, very inconsistent, not on purpose, but it was a pandemic and all that kind of stuff. So benefits of rack pulls, waste of time. No, not a waste of time. Are you a rack puller?
I don't use them right now, but I do like a lot of power shrugs, and I know they're different movements, but I think they kind of like are part of the same tree. But no, definitely not a waste of time. Something that I found to be useful, and I got this from Freaky D, is he left a comment one time where he actually does high volume rack pulls. Because when I was learning about how to lift weights and whatnot, rack pulls were overloading movement. Like, you put more weight than you could deadlift, and then you do a lot of reps for that weighted stretch or something of that nature. But he did rack pulls like at certain points just so that way he could get additional upper back volume. And I was like, oh shoot, that's actually really smart, because you're not limited by your lower back anymore, and you can just like put a lot of hard work and a lot of like good volume with your upper back.
I think rack pulls have a lot, like at my strongest, I was only pulling from the floor every other week or every third week, and I was doing a lot of block pulls. And I think they're easier. Once you have built a good base of lower back strength, it's a good idea to give it a break from the floor. I don't like to overwork the lower back. So one of the mistakes I made was rack pulling in a rack. When I make it to the end of my life and face judgment by whatever that would be, personal, self-inflicted, like the last second of regret, I've bet too many bars doing that, and I'm ashamed to say it, but you really want to be able to find some way to do a block pull.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll say is when you block pull, you have to understand you're more upright. So I found the closer I got my shin, this is just me, the closer I got my shins to the bar, the better the rack pull was. I would try to pull up and back rather than pull straight up. Because my hips are down a little bit. I found that when I pulled up and back, it just felt a little bit better. So that's a tip I kind of share with folks. Let's see. Muhammad Tyson. I know you used to run. I don't know if you still do. Yep. I ran 75 minutes this week. I was probably going to do a run today if I get done with work. I need some tips coming back to running after a long surgery. Get the All Trails app and get off pavement. Hike on the weekends for 2 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. That elevation will help you build up. That'll help you really prepare your conditioning for running. And then from there, you can start to run on the flat ground on your hiking trails and walk the hills. And that's kind of how I would do it. Just if you have to drive to hike, do it. Clue, what's up through? I think my question didn't go through. I had an issue earlier where a ton of questions dropped, and I don't know why, but I think my question didn't go through. But if I bulk and cut between 9 to 13, like kind of bulk cut, shouldn't my cut be slower? As leaner people should cut slower than fatter people. What's the fear here? The fear is that you're going to lose muscle. Okay. So is that fear rational? It's very hard to lose muscle if you're still training. Even if you do lose muscle, it's going to be trivial and muscle memory is going to be your friend. So the downside is the longer you spend in a cut, the more you might pick up dieting fatigue. The more you might be likely to break. Your buddies are going to call and say, "What's up, beer Saturday, bitch?" Right?
Yeah.
Right. So how do you feel? But I'm a fan of getting in and getting the cut down as quickly as sustainable.
Yeah. So overall, I agree with that, and I think that should be the standard advice. However, I think that sometimes people really do struggle, like myself. Like
Right.
One thing that I have like kind of talked about with some other people is just like go at a rate where you don't gain the weight back. That's kind of like what I'm going as far as like if you are like overly obese, I don't think that this person quite meets that criteria. But if you are like severely overweight, and let's say you've made transformations in the past and you weren't able to sustain it, or something of that nature, go at a rate that is, actually lose the weight. Don't like stick around too long at certain body weights, but go at a rate where you won't gain the weight back. Now with this question though, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, he's trying to stay between the 9 to 13% body fat range. And typically, like when someone has a really low range like that, they also kind of have like not that much muscle, and they're also too scared to lose some amount of leanness. And if you are, even in that 15 to 18% range, like you should still have abs. And if you don't have abs in that 15 to 18% range, typically I would just say you're probably under muscled, and a slower, smarter bulk would probably benefit that person.
I got a client, Zach, that I posted on Instagram last night. He's probably at 8%, 8.5%. And that's super ripped, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, the day, like you don't want to have any like bounce back where you're like, I'm going to eat like a pig. If you're cutting at such an aggressive weight that you want to have that pig out day, that's fine, but you might want to dig yourself a hole of a couple, 2-3 more pounds.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, like I can be like that mentally. Like if I'm cutting for a month, I'm going to have nachos and all the stuff, so I might go 2 pounds more than I want. But
yeah, like this is I haven't talked about this story in a long time, but that just like awakened the memory. So I got into the military, and then I really, for horrible reasons, I did not join the military for noble reasons whatsoever. It was bad, but as I got there, I was like, like this sucks. So I tried eating my way out, and I went from like 160, 170 after basic training to getting back to about like 290, 300 pounds. And there's no 300 pounders in the Army. At least there shouldn't be. But then I was like, like I'm taking the coward's way out. I don't like what I'm doing to myself. I don't like how I'm looking right now. So I had 3 months to lose that 100 pounds. And I did want a cheat day. So instead of losing like going from 300 to like, let's say I only need to get to about 220-ish to be in regulation again. So I only need to lose 80, but I lost 100 just because I'm like, what I'm doing right now sucks so bad that I know for a fact I'm going to eat so much that I need that buffer. And I was like, yeah. So went down to 200, and then like, yeah, that buffer space like really helped me, because like the couple months after that, I was like getting my way back up to 220, and then kind of maintained that the entire time I was in the military.
I do really good on cuts, but like when I'm like, the older you get, the emptier your bag of fucks becomes. like for 15 years, it was my training level was like relentless and relentlessly intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I like doing that occasionally now. But mentally it's nice to have a break. But I want to get back down. I'm been cutting to get back down to 210 because I want to leave some room. I want to bulk and cut and just kind of get in that cycle, because I like short-term cuts, but I also like periods where I eat like a little piggy and have a few beers. Right? So
yeah,
I really want to bulk, but I really want to have fat gaining periods.
Yeah, I get that. Like I want to stick around that 220, 242 range, because I do want to do at least a couple powerlifting meets. And then like lifetime goal, hit 1,500 total. So that's kind of like what I want to do, but I want to do it in like either at the 220 or 242 weight class. So that's kind of like what I'm working down to right now.
Yeah, 1,500 is a really good level. It can be discounted when you compare it to all these monsters hitting 2,000. But
yeah.
I mean, back when I was competing in powerlifting, when I was at 1,500, I was a top 1 or 2 in tested meets. Usually the top guy in tested meets. The first meet I did, I was like 1,583, and that was the first ever powerlifting meet. They walked me straight to the P room. So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I didn't know that 1,580 was going to be the top, stuff in the meet. I was just a fatty McFatty. What do we got here? We're almost done. You still good?
Yeah, still got time. I'm great on time.
Thoughts on Alpha Destiny's method of 2 sets per exercise? I don't have any issue with it. I don't like the word failure, though. Does he go to failure, or does he go to max safe reps? I don't know.
Because that's a very important distinction. I like using 2 sets per exercise on certain exercises. Like, so for right now with my training, I do use a somewhat linearly periodized approach, like American block periodization is kind of like what I kind of do right now with most of my training. So when it comes to the accessory portion, I'm only doing 2 sets, because by the time I get to that point, I'm already 45 minutes into my workout, and like my brain capacity only like will top out at about 75 minutes, or is like a minute or an hour and a half. So when I get to those accessories, like 2 sets and I go to technical failure, but I try to go to like true technical failure, where like once I really need to like incorporate some body English, I'm done. because I think some people they're too quick, or they like add body English too early. Like really fight for your reps with those exercises, like your extensions, your curls, and whatnot.
I have a program called Massive Mass, which is 2 sets per exercise. And I don't have any issues with it. You can do 1 set, you can do 2. Only thing I would say is allow yourself the flexibility to do 1 or 2 sets for max safe reps, depending on how the exercise feels. Mentally, I like doing 1 set because I like do 12 and then max. Or 10 and max. And then if I go 2 above the 10 or the 12, then I'll add weight the next time. I just don't like mentally always taking every set to the limit anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
Big Brandon. Lots on doing push-pull legs, push-pull, then a shoulder day, then a rest day. I gotta unpack that in my brain. Push-pull legs, push-pull, shoulder. You got a lot of pushing. That's the way I put it. Anything can work if structured properly.
Yeah.
So,
and like, I don't know exactly what his goals are. So if his goals are purely a certain aesthetic, and that's what matches his ability, like to get the total work needed in the week, then yeah, all for it. Just have to program it properly.
The only thing I say when these things is like allow yourself the when you're doing frequency training, allow yourself the flexibility to plug in an extra rest day if you need it.
Yeah, great point.
You got plenty of work during the week, so if you need a rest day in there, just shove it in there. For an early intermediate who's planning to bulk for 18 months, what are your thoughts on throwing in random? I don't know about every 2 months. That's a little bit too snappy.
Yeah.
I think you want a good 3-month block of training at least. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 3 months. And then like also when it comes to like these random like mini cuts. So the word random is something that also kind of like, I guess like rings a bell in my head, I guess. Because sometimes you're going to be in a deficit whether you like it or not, like every now and then. So I think that monitoring your weight and monitoring everything else that's going on in your life and whatnot, like will kind of alleviate that somewhat, and then you're going to benefit more so from a planned mini cut more than like this randomly throwing it in there.
With my clients, when we look at cutting, we try to work in cutting periods during the year, but I will ask them, is this a good time to cut? Do you have events coming up, your birthday, any weddings? Is this a good time from work? It really has to make sense in your life. So just keep that in mind. All right, we have Dave McConey. Thoughts on Dave McConey's calf experiment, where he's only been training 1 calf for 3 years, but that the calf has experienced no growth and is the same size as his untrained one. So what have you heard anything?
I've never heard about this.
He's training 1 calf and his experience no growth. Is that how I'm reading it?
Yeah, so I would probably have to do like some research into like how he framed the experiment and whatnot, because I don't necessarily think, like, I get experiments like this, because you're able to keep the variables like the same because you're doing it on the same person. You don't have to account for different genetics, and you're able to hold other things more constant just because it's on yourself. And then when you share the results and whatnot, but this is not how most people would actually train their calves if they wanted to see growth. So as a result, I just kind of like would question it's like, how a person could draw from it and then make appropriate conclusions for their own training.
First off, he has some epic level OCD going on or something. Like I could never stick. I can't even stick to the same thing for like 2 weeks. Like my brain's just like, I want to get you to therapy or something. Make sure you're okay. That's just a joke, Dave. Dave's been on here before. So, but the only possible outcome is that to prove that calves are very genetic.
Yeah.
And the only thing I will say, if this is the outcome, is no one has a calf day, right? Like man, I had an epic calf day. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to train calves, either go train them like you're training back or don't train them at all. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
And I've never seen any, I mean, I don't know. I used to work with Mark Lobliner, Tiger Fitness, the most pathetic calves in the history of the world. Mine are big and beefy, and I never train them. Do you have big, beefy calves?
Oh yeah. So like like when people ask like how I got my calves so big, I was like, I was fat for most of my life. That's really the answer.
You ever seen a fat guy with stick calves? That's
Only once in my life. Only once in my life, and it was the scariest thing ever because I just thought, like, if this guy trips, he's not gonna have ankles anymore.
Like, you see the movie The Whale?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen a guy like not that big, but a big dude that has like stick calves?
Like, it was weird because it was like he like, no disrespect to this guy because he was really cool. He was actually a friend of mine, but he was built like a ice cream cone, like really, really small, then all of a sudden got really, really big toward the top. I was like, oh my God, man. Like,
It's a good question. If anybody legit has a picture of a 300-pound man with like Mark Lobliner level calves, like these little 12 inchers, I want to see it because I've never seen them in my life. But I don't know. The key is to like bulk fat until you get 300 pounds, walk the earth for 10 years.
Yep.
Maybe we'll give that to Dave McConey next.
Right. Yeah.
A kind of a loner here, and not having many friends. I think he talks about this with James Tinyvest. I mean, I do YouTube for a living, and people automatically assume I'm an extrovert, but I like people, but I need them in short bursts, right?
Yeah. 100%.
It's not that people aggravate me, but I like, you ever get in a room and like some guys like talking and then 15 minutes later he's talking and 30 minutes later he's talking and he won't shut up. Like I don't want to be around that stuff. Like, I'm just like, dude, I gotta go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, I used to, I guess, is lament the right word? Like, I felt bad about being a loner, but then I kind of found that it's actually a very peaceful life and it's actually really nice sometimes. So, I'm a personal trainer also. So, or at least I was for quite a while. So dealing with people like for 8 hours a day, different people with different problems, different people with different personalities and whatnot. Like, and you have to be personable to be a good personal trainer. Like, you have to care about the people, at least in my opinion, you do. So what I would find that I was just like drained at the end of the day. Like,
Right.
I like was it was very difficult for me to maintain the same amount of intensity in my training just after like 8 hours worth of clients. Like, it was just very difficult. So when it comes to being a loner, like, the most important thing here is like, what do you really want? Like, do you want to be around a lot of people? Because then it's just like, okay, like, you're probably dealing with some level of shyness. And then just like, you can train that. You can like just talk to people randomly, say like, hey, nice shirt. Like, hey, what's on your shirt? Like, something simple like that. Like, you're at the grocery store. Hey, have you ever tried this before? Like, really small, like, social stuff there. Like, if you just want to be more sociable. But if you want like deeper friendships, the most important thing I would say is just like, hey, just start with one friend and try to make that friend like, as deep as a friendship as you possibly can.
I don't think loner necessarily has to be a negative thing. Liking to be alone is not. It can be good for mental health. You need, like a song, you need spaces in life that are quiet. And I work from sun up to sundown. I have my phone blowing up and DMs, and that's a blessing. But I also need my time where I go off and I sit in the bathtub, and every night for half an hour, I just mindlessly scroll through my phone.
We all have something.
Leave my body and the clutter leave my head. And that's why I like trail running, because I can go out there and there's just nothing. And I get to unplug. But I don't know, people, I always try to, I think one of the best ways to build relationships with people, we don't have enough awareness about social, how to function properly in a social environment. If you want people, if you're shy, if you want people to like you, ask questions. Don't do it forced. Be sincere, right?
I just had this like thought process where like someone's really shy, and like he just goes up to someone, "Hey, where are you going later?" Like,
where are you going later? Can I come? Yeah, yeah. I like your. Where did you get your shoes? Like somebody said at the subway. Hey, where did you get your shoes? Like, but I mean, just asking people questions in social environments, get them talking. It's much better than if you just talk about yourself.
Oh, true.
So that's a starting point. That's a loner tip for loners. John Paul, 3 weeks and lost 6 pounds. Good job. Just keep at it. And I would dig in, try to get that over in the last week and a half. My parents decided to eat outside. What's wrong with them?
How dare they? Don't they know you're cutting?
Don't they know I'm cutting? And why not, right? Even if I'm cutting, we ate burgers last year. Yeah, it's just a couple pounds of water weight. You'll be good. Enjoy the time with your family. All right, I'm going to save this one for last. We'll do that last, and then we'll go. We'll breeze through the rest, and we'll do this one last. I agree with you guys. If I'm not getting stronger, I'm not going to lift. Yeah. That's just what I like. How you run 20 miles and maintain size? A lot of beer, my friend.
For me, when I was in, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, for me, when I was in the military, like I was in a combat support hospital unit. So like, it's basically a bunch of medics who think they're infantry. So we ran like absurd amount of miles. And like, when people say like, damn, how are you still big? I was like, donuts. They're great.
Like I had, at one point I had one of the top runners in the world as a coach. Gary Robbins, who tried to complete the Barkley. And we were having a conversation about running. And he said when he's in peak training mode where he's running a lot, it's very easy for him to gain weight. And I gained like 16 pounds in the 2 years where we first started running. Because I like my watch would say, hey, you burned 1,753 calories today. Right.
Yeah.
So I slowly gained like 16 pounds or whatever.
Yeah, I get that.
How to differentiate between loose skin and fat? Well, I get a lot of loose skin questions. I'm sure you've had your share. You can't get rid of loose skin really other than surgery. You can minimize it in some areas with muscle, but it's still going to hang.
Yeah.
If you're super lean and you got these little hangy bits under your armpits or on your man boobs or your lower belly, that's loose skin.
Yeah.
But it really you got to be super lean. And if you're there, go see a doctor about surgery.
True.
I mean, it's super cheap.
And loose skin is more than preferable than heart disease and diabetes.
Yeah. And like, if you're like, men have a blessing. I'm just going to say it's like if a woman needs like all the stuff and the breast augmentation and the stuff and the tummy tuck, like that gets expensive. But if a guy just needs a little bit of belly, loose skin, it's a lot cheaper, my friend. If missed creatine for a few days, just get back on it. I mean, focus. I mean, there's no other thing than to get back on it.
Yeah, like if you miss, like let's say you miss brushing your teeth for 2 days for some reason, and then like you don't just brush your teeth harder, like you just have to get that habit again.
Right. Is there any impact? Don't worry, it's done. Get back on the bus. Right. What do you think about VersaGrips? I don't use them, but if you don't want your hands to get torn up, I don't care. I mean, we can make fun of that, but some people make fun of that, but like. It's okay to have soft hands. I don't know. Do you like luxurious soft hands?
Yeah, so I could like hold my boyfriend's hands better at the beach. Just kidding. But like, I just remember because we've all done weird stuff. So I used to wear gloves in the gym, like like the fingerless gloves. I thought it made me look cool. I was 15, okay, but and then like I remember like this older gentleman was just like, "What, are you trying to give your boyfriend better hand jobs?" I was like, "Oh,
Right,
damn
right,
it!"
right.
Threw my gloves away that day. But no, I mean, like if it's like if you're trying to protect your hands for whatever reason, it could be any reason. It doesn't matter. If you think it helps you, then what anyone else has to say about it is not that important.
I am genetically modified. Like I have pads here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I literally have hard calluses that never go away.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I take years away from deadlifting, they remain. So I don't know. I don't. Yeah, if that's your thing, I don't really care. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to judge.
Yeah, I think like I remember when I was young, like I remember like some people would say like, oh, when you shake a man's hand, if it's soft, then they're a bitch or something like that. I have not heard that in the past like 10, 15 years, and I think it's for good reason because we realize just how stupid that is.
I don't know. It's what do your thing. You be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big Paul. I noticed the pull-ups pull-ups great work. Any suggestions on how to get better at them? They're a huge weakness.
So what I recommend is like the moment you can do one, you do like as many of those as you can. So time sets are really good with that. Block out 5-10 minutes. That's something you can do. And then of course do that on top of barbell rows, bicep curls. That's something I also like came around to. Like oftentimes people say like, oh, you want to get better at pull-ups, do more pull-ups. It's like that's useful, don't get me wrong, but it should also be supplemented by a larger volume of curls, upper back work, and other pulls.
There's a couple things I've noticed over the years. Number one, because of limb links and leverages and stuff, some guys just will never be good at pull-ups. That doesn't mean they can't get good at them, but they're really going to have a struggle bus. So you really have to invest a lot of energy and time and keep a leaner body mass. I recommend block sets too, trying to get in certain amount of reps per 2-minute block or 1-minute block, and just trying to improve in that realm. I mean, I've found body weight exercises more than anything to have a higher degree of variability.
Yeah, so true.
Like, I can't explain why, but for a long time, I would do bench, and then I would do dumbbell bench, and then I would do push-ups. And I would do 2 to 3 sets of max reps on push-ups. Some days I could do all 30s, and some days I could only do 15 or 16. I don't know if that was from how I felt on the bench and dumbbell bench, but there was a much higher degree of variability in body weight for me.
Yeah, so true. And one of the things I'll say too, as like being a big guy, I noticed that even a 10 pound reduction in my overall body weight, like my average body weight, will reveal itself a lot more reps. So for example, if I lose 5 pounds, I tend to get like 3 to 4 reps on my max pull-ups. If I lose 10, it's even more. So if you are really, really heavy right now, like let's say that 225, 250 plus range, keep doing your pull-ups, even if it's in that 3 to 6 range, because as the weight starts coming off, you'll actually like double your reps just by losing weight.
The most reps I've gotten over the weight of 230 was like 5. That's it.
Yeah.
What do you think about normal pyramid sets and all exercises? Like, well, some bodybuilders do. I personally don't like doing my heaviest work last, but I've been experimenting with doing my heaviest exercise last lately, and it can be done. You just have to pay attention. You have to regulate the weight. And it's probably a good idea to have a strength base already, some connective tissue strength already. But I prefer doing the heavier stuff generally first. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, part of that is because of my bias towards strength training also. So when it comes to like, pyramid sets where like, escalating sets, how he puts it, you're always going to be held back by the fatigue you've accumulated with your buildup. So for bodybuilders, at least the ones who choose to do it, that might be a good thing. But like you mentioned, it's if they already have that strength base there because they can just generate so much, I guess, fatigue. And as a result, it helps them have another, I guess, barrier or something of that nature. Hey, doggo. To so that way they don't overwork themselves. But the thing is, like, a lot of people who try to avoid overworking themselves are not the ones who should be worrying about that. So if you like it, cool. And if you are still making progress, then cool too. But I think, like you mentioned, have that strength base first.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of doing a reverse pyramid or doing your heaviest stuff first is when you lower the weight, and my clients do this a lot on what we call threes, the weight feels lighter.
Yep.
And you have kind of, you're more fatigued after that first hard set of squats, but you're also feeling a little bit confident because the weight is lighter. So I find that to be more enjoyable personally.
Yep.
Big Larzo, I feel like I'm tricep dominant. That's okay. Of course, it could be the case, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that describes me.
I mean, I'm tricep dominant, but I work everything hard, and people will ask about this. The only thing you can do is focus on what you can control, and for me, that's working everything hard and letting all the chips just fall where they fall. Rack pulls, not above the knee.
Yep.
I mean, I can pull like 1,000 above the knee.
Yeah.
I like it from 3 to 5 inches off the groundish. How about you?
Yeah, around there, like mid shin, or at least around that area.
Yeah, I mean, you go too high. I do that occasionally for fun, but a lot of it's just dicking around, to be honest with you. Like, I've deadlifted for 15 years. I'm just going to go right below the. Yeah, I don't really think. I just pull from an area, but 3 to 5 inches is kind of a good sweet spot. Ever work with, dude, I will tell you, insomnia, if you get into coaching, you will find out that sleep issues are far more normal than people talk about.
True.
I don't understand them. I sleep like a rock. Have you ever had insomnia or any sleep issues?
Only through certain phases of my life. I was able to use certain lifestyle adjustments to deal with it, but I also know people who can't do that. Their lifestyle habits are pretty well aligned, but then they still get poor sleep. Typically, I'm not an expert, but auto regulation just has to be the biggest thing, when it comes to training with insomnia.
Yeah, one thing scientifically that we're kind of learning about is that sleep consistency is almost as important as sleep duration. So if you struggle with sleep issues, it'll probably be a bigger benefit if you go to bed at about the same time, keep the same habits. I'm not going to say that's a miracle solution that you'll feel a lot better, but it sure won't hurt. And look, this is a medical condition. You need to take care of your diet. You need to take care of your sleep hygiene. You need to get in the sun, and you probably need to see a doctor.
Yeah, see what you might be deficient in.
Calluses from lifting never disappear. Yep, they won't for me. The best comment of the day, balls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calluses aren't just dermatological badges of honor. They help protect your hands, indeed. And can we do a live? James, I follow on Facebook. I like James a lot, but James in his own world, and I don't mean that in a negative thing. If I asked him to do a live, he probably would. We could sync up. But I don't know. Lives with two people really grow into like monsters as far as length of time. So,
True.
What does it say? I get about 4 hours of sleep through the night. All right, we're going to hit one last question. I got a client call in 14 minutes. So, top 10 exercises. Okay, let's work through this body part by body part. And then we'll see what we got left, and then we're going to hop off. So chest, what are your chest must-haves or kind of horizontal pressing must-haves?
The barbell bench press with a slightly closer grip. So I know most people will recommend like wide grip benching for the pecs, and nothing wrong with that. Most people will feel that, but I just think that overall for sustainability, shoulder health, and whatnot, a slightly closer. I'm not talking about like super close. It's me like shoulder width. I use a thumb distance away from the smooth as my starting point, and I love that. The most important thing is like even though I'm not going super wide, I make sure to control the descent. Do a t-shirt touch pause for about 2-3 seconds and then like explode up, and I feel my chest really well on that.
So are you going to go with any dumbbell bench, any dips?
So I do a lot of dips. I love dips just because I love that extended range of motion. Part of the reason why I prefer dips over dumbbells is just that, sure, you could definitely change like your hand angle so that way it's more neutral, more 45 degrees, so that way the dumbbell doesn't get in the way. However, I just find that if you have pre-existing shoulder issues, even getting into the starting position of a dumbbell bench could be problematic, but a dip, you can control that a bit more. You're a bit safer, and as a result, you can just put a lot more volume in it. So I love, at least for myself, flat barbell benching, dips, and then for extra work, I really do enjoy incline, either Smith machine or even barbell, and then what's the last one? Chest flies, so pec deck. I love that. So dumbbells are great. I don't think that there's anything wrong with them, but I just I don't use them all the time just because I haven't found the need for it quite yet.
Well, I would go with barbell and dumbbell bench and whatever variation, but third on my list is the barrel press. That's been my new love. So I don't know if that would make it. That wouldn't make it into the top 10, but it'd be outside the next room knocking at the door.
Yeah, definitely.
Back. I'm going to go with deadlifts and pendlay rows and dumbbell rows with seated cable rows being outside the door.
I would put seated cable rows like, busting the door down. But yeah, so I really like seated cable rows. Most of my back size actually did come from that. I do have to pay some respect to the also another lift that I used a lot, which was T-bar rows. Most of my upper back development did come from that. I do think that overall, pendlay rows are a very good exercise, but I do prefer a strict, hang barbell row. I just find that even though the lower back fatigue is a factor, I find that to be a good thing actually, because it helps me maintain a certain type of bracing when it comes to my deadlift. And then deadlifts for sure. So at the top of it, deadlifts, barbell rows, and then seated cables for me.
And I hope you guys can see that these discussions are fruitful in the sense that every body is different in how the lift plays out. Like pendlay rows just feel better for my limb lengths and leverages and my ability to feel my back and, so on and so forth. Vertical pulls, like I feel like we talked about pull-ups, they can be very limiting and very tedious and they can take a long time to develop. Lat pull downs kind of cap out quickly.
They do, for sure.
Like you hit a hard wall and you're like, I blame that on a lot of the machines more than anything.
Yeah, you will definitely go to like different gyms, and then a lat pull down will either like be like the best thing you've ever done, or just like, wow, I'm using the whole stack and it barely feels like anything.
Yeah, I mean, you just whatever machine you're on, you just tend to go like whoop, and then whoop, like you're just done. All right, shoulders. I love seated. That's all I've ever done. For 20 years, all I did was seated BTNs. I think once you reach a stage size-wise, they can be problematic, but I like seated BTNs and seated dumbbells. That's probably the only two that would make it into my top 10.
So for strictly shoulder size, I 100% agree with you on that. Like, I really like the seated presses overall, like much better for shoulder size. The reason why I do standing strict is purely for personal reasons, not because I think it's like a superior lift. It's just like I just like that exercise. But one thing that's really cool is that most of these exercises, they exist like I guess in a circle. So where like on a wheel, I would say. So whichever exercise is on the top is really just because you put it there, but it's
Right.
not that necessarily that it's like on a higher ranking. It's just like if you turn the wheel a little bit, like the spots change.
Yeah, I mean, I almost like dumbbell exercises more than I like barbell for the pressing
Hmm.
and for rows. But it's not like I'm going to sit down and gun to head really have to make this.
Right. Yeah.
Quads, obviously it's squats, but I bought a leverage squat machine 3 years ago, and I think that's the greatest thing on planet Earth.
Mm.
If you've never got a chance, it's not going to be for everyone, but I love the leverage squat. I think it allows most people to go deep. It really hits the quads, and you can really progressively overload. And there's a point where you don't want to continue, but you can continue, and that's a good place to be on an exercise.
Hmm. Yeah. So, barring squats, I really do like Smith machine squats. So, I do angle my body slightly so that when my feet are slightly in front of me, so that way I can get super deep and put a lot of like tension on the quad. I like that one a lot, but I found pendulum squats to be really good. So if you have access to that machine, I know it's like pretty popular. It's more available nowadays in certain gym environments, but not all of them. But I really do like pendulum squats. I just find that with pendulum squats, and the reason why I put them over like something like a hack squat is just because my knees feel better on the pendulum one. So I think trying to find whichever one allows you to get the deepest range of motion while still feeling comfortable with your knees is going to be what's really good. And I just find pendulums to be a lot better for that.
Most gyms have hacks and leg presses, but if I was president of the gym world, I would see more pendulum squats and
Mm-hmm.
properly designed horizontal leg presses.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the common machines we rely on. They're good, but I just find there's other exercises that are better.
True.
So we got like the 4 big hitters, and we're running out of leg room. We kind of got some 2, 3, 4 exercises we could fit in outside of like what we talked about. What are your 2, 3, 4 other exercises that are fighting for the top 10?
So for me, I would have to say easy bar curls. That's a really important one. I think that if you are finding like some amount of like weakness in, let's say, or discomfort in your elbows, I just think having bigger biceps makes sense to me as being like a way to kind of deal with that. But also like if you are struggling with any type of pulling variation, I also find that to be useful, just having bigger arms. So that's one that I would put there. And I guess for the last one, honestly, I know that this is what just comes to mind right now. A lot of people have like cited that study where it's just like seated leg curls are better. I actually don't really find that to be the case for myself and for a lot of people I've coached in person. As far as like being able to get the type of pump or feel the muscle or even just put in an amount of work that doesn't rely on you like using anything that isn't your hamstring or your posterior chain, I just find people are able to have better reps with the lying version. So I love that one a bit more.
Well, I'm really torn on the last ones. I like doing shrugs, but lately I've been playing around with behind the back shrugs, and where you pull the bar above your glutes, and they just destroy my rear delts. Just sick. I'm not a man to use sick pumps, but my goodness. But dumbbell, barbell curl, that's kind of I like them both. So it's kind of a coin flip for me. And then beyond that, hamstring work, really, not my favorite thing.
I will admit that, yeah.
Triceps, I usually use close grips or skull destroyer as my kind of exercise creation. So that would be my pick. All right, man. We got does your home gym ebook contain multiple workouts? I I put it together during the pandemic, and I'm not sure. So if you can email me, I'll after this. I got to hop on a call, but I'll be glad to take a peek. All right, man. I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate you taking the time. It was a crazy day. Had a bunch of comments drop, and I don't know what the hell happened, but we got through it alive, and we got some good information. I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, of course. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Let everybody know again where they can find you on the YouTubes.
Yep, on YouTube it's Stan's Strength, so STAND Strength, and then same thing on Instagram.
All right, man, we're gonna have a hard cut out of here. I appreciate it. You have a good weekend.
You too, sir.
Out of here.
It's not almost over. It's not almost over. You're not almost there. You're not almost there. You're not almost there.